Good evening. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the school board meeting this Tuesday, February 6, 2024. Today, our student representative is Leah Hernandez Bauer from Riverview High School, and Leah will lead us in the pledge. The Riverview High School JROTC cadets will present the colors. Please stand. Leah, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For this evening's arts highlight, we are featuring 8th grade violinist Andrei Patkovsky. Andrei is a proud member of the Laurel Nokomis Orchestra. He is also a member of the Sarasota Orchestra's Youth Philharmonic, as well as community group Strings Con Brio and the Illyrian Symphony Orchestra. Andrei started playing the violin when he was 6. He moved to the area from Ukraine 1 year ago. He has been taking private violin lessons from Marcus Ratzenbach. The orchestra teacher at Laurel Nokomis, who's here with us tonight, is Amanda Bauman, and Mr. Ray Wilson is the proud principal. Please welcome Andrei. Wow. Andre, that was a world-class professional performance, and we're honored to have you here this evening, and it's very special to have those opportunities in our schools. Thank you, Laurel Nokomis, and in our community as well. What a benefit to have the arts supporting our students. So thank you, and let's give Andre one more round of applause. Our student representative today, again, is Leah Hernandez-Bauer from Riverview High School. Welcome again, Leah. It's nice for you to join us as the student representative. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. Good evening, everyone. Happy Tuesday. I'm super happy to be here this evening. Just to introduce myself again, my name is Leah Hernandez-Bauer, and I'm from Riverview High School. Ms. Hoy, our amazing principal, asked me to attend this meeting and tell you guys a little bit about myself, and I am more than happy to share. To sum myself up in 2 words, I would say well-rounded and passionate. And I would not be able to say that about myself if I did not join Future Business Leaders of America, also known as FBLA. From joining the club online freshman year because of COVID, being the only person on the Zoom call, to now being the president and the 2-time state secretary of the organization, I have learned so many things. I've learned how to be a leader, how to communicate, how to delegate, and overall just be more prepared for the real world as a whole. Being on stage for our annual leadership conference, leading Florida's division of FBLA in front of over 5,000 members, representing Riverview High School has been an honor. On top of being on class board all 4 years in high school, balancing sports, work, and being in the International Baccalaureate program, it has definitely been a heck of a ride. Sometimes stressful, but definitely worth it. Now, with only a few months left at school, as I said, I am a senior, I hope to attend either the University of Central Florida or Florida State University, pursuing, you'll never guess, a business degree. I hope to take my leadership skills and my experience that I've gained at Riverview High School to hopefully become a future CEO. Now, of course, I did not get here on my own. That would not be possible in any way. I can wholeheartedly say that the support at Riverview High School is beyond amazing, and I'm so grateful that I have people like, just a couple shout outs, Ms. Hamblin, she's my FBLA advisor, Coach Campbell and the Student Success Center, Ms. Bryan, my speech and debate teacher for 2 years. I wouldn't be able to give this speech right now if it wasn't for her, honestly. My parents, my counselors, and of course, Ms. Hoy, my principal, who couldn't be here today, but she gave me this wonderful opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you all so much for your time and for listening to my story. I hope you guys have a good night.
Leah, we would like to thank you for serving as our representative and present you with this certificate of appreciation, and we wish you the best of luck. Do we have any of Leah's teachers here that she called a shout out for you tonight, or administration if you're here? If you could please stand, we'd love to recognize you. Thank you. And Superintendent Connor, the superintendent's report, please.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And Leah, I have to say that was a fantastic job. Please go back and tell your speech and debate teacher he gets an A or she gets an A for preparing you so well. You did a great job. So tonight, happy February, everyone. It's hard to believe we're already past the first month of the school year and rocking and rolling into the third quarter. And there's lots to celebrate in our district. As we proceed through tonight, our consent agenda highlights, we're going to start off with item number 8, which is an affiliation agreement between Grand Canyon University and the school district. This will allow students who are pursuing education degrees to come and complete their observations, their field experiences, and do their teaching internships right in our classrooms. This is a great opportunity for us as a school district, not only to help impart knowledge and experience to our interns, but actually to help us recruit more teachers into the field here in Sarasota County. And as a matter of fact, thanks to the partnership with the Barancic Foundation, we are now able to pay our interns $15 an hour, and that has already produced a 250% increase just from the first semester. We now have 20 teacher interns in our schools, 7 from universities and 12 in our Sarasota County schools. So this is a great opportunity, and we continue to leverage this partnership in order to have fantastic teachers within our school system. Consent agenda item number 10 is our agreement between the Booker Promise Foundation and the school district. This initiative, really born out of Dr. Shelley, the principal at Booker High School's dream in terms of making sure that students have a foundation, have a promise for their future. We know that post-secondary readiness sometimes is a challenge for students, especially for students who are in low socioeconomic situations. And this initiative really helps students get prepared for college, pairs them with a mentor, helps them with planning and life readiness skills, and more importantly, money and scholarships to help them fulfill their dreams of post-secondary education. So we're excited about our Booker Promise agreement. Consent agenda item 29 is the purchase of the property for a future school at Lakewood Ranch in the Waterside area. As a part of the 2010 school planning agreement for the villages of Lakewood Ranch, we secured a 20-plus acre school site that was set aside to mitigate the impacts of the proposed over 5,000 residential unit development. And so we're happy to now get to a point where we can purchase that land. And what's even better is we are able to get that at a very low cost, because since we started this agreement, land prices have gone up tremendously. And so we've locked in that at a very good deal for those 20 acres. So we're excited about the future development of Lakewood Ranch. We are planning for 2 schools, hopefully there, a K-5 elementary school, which would be this particular piece of land, and eventually we will be looking towards building a high school at another nearby site. A couple of announcements we'd love to make. Congratulations to the following seniors from the following schools who have been appointed to a military academy. So Wilhelm Hamburger and Andrea Witherspoon from Riverview High School. One will be going to West Point, and one will be going to the Air Force Academy. From Sarasota High School, we have Hayden Wilding, who is verbally committed to West Point, and Cindy Brand, who is verbally committed to the U.S. Naval Academy. From Pineview School, we have Casey Atten going to the U.S. Naval Academy, and Ethan Wang going to West Point. And from Venice High School, we have Micah Thompson going to West Point. Congratulations to those students. What an outstanding accomplishment. We want to congratulate Carla Sims for being recognized at the 2024 Florida Literacy Teacher of the Year. She was announced at this year's Florida Literacy Association annual conference, and she currently teaches 8th graders at Sarasota Middle School, and she teaches civics, and she is the co-president of the Sarasota Reading Council. Thank you, and way to go, Carla. And congratulations to Ms. Lewis for being awarded the Oliver Hobbs Award from the Florida Bandmasters Association. She was awarded for consistently achieving top ratings in all MPAs and delivering exceptional service to the profession. Ms. Lewis has also been honored as one of 4 band directors being recognized annually for this esteemed award. And as a father of a Kilty, who under Ms. Lewis's direction, I can tell you she is an excellent band director. Woodland Middle School received an outstanding award from ITEEA STEM School of Excellence Award. There were only 29 schools who have been selected to receive this award internationally, and only one of 3 middle schools that received this award nationally and internationally. So congratulations to Woodland Middle School for receiving the STEM School of Excellence Award. And February is Black History Month, and so we're celebrating that. So happy Black History Month to all, and our schools are out conducting many, many lessons, and we're going to hopefully pull together a nice little video by the end of the month to celebrate all that we've accomplished over the course of this month. And it is also, yes, go ahead. And this is also National School Counseling Week, so we want to recognize all of our great school counselors this week, February 5th through the 9th. And just an announcement for those who are looking towards the future, preparing for college. The Florida Prepaid College Saving Plans open enrollment is open from February 1st through April 30th. And I got to tell you, there are some significant discounts, up to 25% off this year's open enrollment period. So if you haven't already started, please do so. And congratulations to Sarasota County for an increase in the graduation rate, 90.3%. That is up over 1.3% over last year, 1.4% over last year, where the state average was only a 0.7 increase, so almost double that in terms of the state average. So congratulations, Sarasota County, for increasing graduation rate. And school choice is open enrollment is now open. This is the month, February, all month we are have open enrollment for school choice. If you don't know anything about school choice, that's okay. Because of today, we're also announcing that we've got our own very own podcast starting for Sarasota County Schools called Tune In. You can find it, you'll be able to find it on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts beginning February 8th. And guess what the first topic's all about? School choice. And you can learn all about the great choices within our district, how to apply, and all of those questions that our parents would be asking about school choice. So thanks to our team, communications department, and all involved to help kick off that. And we'll be using this podcast as an opportunity to share all of the great things that are happening in our school district, have lively conversations around lots of topics, school safety, mental health, summer learning, what's going on in our classrooms. All of those things will be a part of this series. So we're excited about using this to help inform our community about the happenings that are going on in our school district. And that is it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent Connor. I just want to do a special shout out for Carla Sams as well. I introduced her to the district, and I couldn't be more proud of her accomplishments, particularly in reading. And thank you for recognizing Director Tamara Lewis. She was meant to lead the direct the Kilty Band, and we couldn't be in better shape. We're moving on to the hearing of citizens. This evening, we have 50.
Sorry, Madam Chair, we have
please.
one more thing I forgot.
Please.
We have to do our audit presentation.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
How exciting. We get to do our audit presentation. Sorry about that.
No worries.
As you know, we are required to undergo an annual audit, and the audit firm Cherry Beckert was retained through our audit committee selection process and has completed our audit for the 22-23 financial statements. So we have a brief presentation by Lauren Strope with Cherry Beckert. Lauren.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here today. What I have in front of you is just a brief presentation. Oh, thank you so much. To go over the nature, the timing, and the extent of the audit procedures that we performed. Oh, I'm so sorry. They're on.
Okay.
Just lean in.
Yep, it'll catch you.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, perfect. So just a quick agenda. We'll kind of breeze through a lot of this, and it's a good thing that we get to breeze through it, because generally if we have to spend a lot of time, it's because something kind of went wrong during the course of the audit. So it's a good thing that we can go quickly. So this was your client service team. I'm Lauren Strope, and I served as your engagement partner. So I had the ultimate responsibility for the delivery of the audit report. Scott Anderson is our second reviewer, so he's someone who comes in and does a cold review after we've completed our audit to make sure that we've made all the right decisions. We have Steve Siegel, who's our firm's technical director, Anthony Walsh, who served as the senior manager, and Andrew and Jack, who did really all the heavy lifting on the engagement. So the results of the audit, and one thing that everyone really likes when I come up and say is we have completed our audit and we did issue our opinion dated December 5th, 2023. We follow a variety of different standards when we complete your audit. The first is a report under generally accepted auditing standards, which basically says that we planned and performed our audit in order to express an opinion on whether or not the financial statements are free from any sort of material misstatement. And I'm pleased to report that we issued an unmodified opinion. That sounds kind of funny, but basically it's a clean opinion, and it's the highest level of assurance that we as your external auditor can provide to you. It's the only type of opinion that you want. The second standard that we follow is government auditing standards, which do require us to look at the internal controls you have over financial reporting. We actually don't opine on those internal controls, but if we become aware of a problem such as a significant deficiency or a material weakness in those internal controls, we'd be required to communicate to you today, and I'm pleased to report that we did not have any of that. We also complete a federal single audit, which is an audit of all of the federal dollars that you have. When we complete that audit, we look at not only compliance with the 14 different compliance requirements that you could have with any different grant, but also the internal controls over that compliance. We rendered a no comment opinion, which again is that highest level of assurance, and it means that we didn't find any issues either in compliance or in internal controls over that compliance. So again, a clean report there. Finally, the state of Florida does require that we issue a management letter, and we did so, and that was unmodified and also a clean letter there. And finally, the state of Florida has us issue a report and examination over your compliance with the state statutes investment policies, and that was a clean opinion as well. So just a very quick on internal control. This kind of talks about what I just said, which was that we don't opine on internal control, but if we became aware of any issues, we would let you know of that. And again, we denoted no deficiencies that we consider to be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal control. We are required to communicate to those charged with governance if we had any corrected misstatements. And what that means is after the management has given us the financial statements, if we as the auditor say, hey, these adjustments need to be made in order to bring this in compliance with GAAP or generally accepted accounting standards, that would be an audit adjustment, but we're pleased that we did not have any of those. We also didn't have any uncorrected misstatements, which is the exact same thing, only management, for whatever reason, decides they're not going to record the entry. I would be required to communicate that with you. Just some of the qualitative aspects of accounting principles. You did adopt a new standard this year, that's SCS 96, that deals with subscription-based technology arrangements. So basically last year I came up here and told you that you implemented the new lease standard and all the leases came on the balance sheet. Well, now all of those SBITAs came on the balance sheet with an offsetting liability as well. When we complete your audit, we look at any sort of related party relationships and transactions. None came to light that were not already previously noted to us by management. There were no significant or unusual transactions within the district that I need to note to you today. There are a lot of estimates inherently in accounting practice. So in just coming up with GAAP financial statements, inherently management has a lot of estimate in there. We spend a lot of time as the auditor looking at those estimates and making sure that they're reasonable to the financials as a whole. We looked at things like the useful lives of PP&E, the estimates of liabilities for insurance claims payable and early retirement payables, pension, OPEB, things like that. We look at the actuary report and all of the estimates that went in there. Finally, we did find that all of the estimates were fair in relation to the financials as a whole. Additionally, we found that the financial statements disclosures were neutral, consistent, and clear. As your independent auditor, independence is very high on our level of concerns, and we are independent of the district, both in appearance and in fact. The only non-attest function that we performed for the district was the preparation of the data collection form, which is just the federal dollars upload. We had no difficulties in dealing with management. They are fantastic to work with and deal with. Every time we had a question, they made sure we got an answer. Anytime we needed more support, they made sure that it was there. We had no disagreements with dealing with them on any sort of financial statement treatment. We, as the auditor, did not have to consult with those outside of the audit engagement. And we did receive a management representation letter dated the same day as the audit report, and it basically just says that everything that they told us or gave to us during the course of the audit was true to the best of their knowledge and belief. To our knowledge, management has not consulted with other accountants. That would only be relevant if we just want to make sure that we both got the same set of information and hopefully come to the same conclusion. We, as your auditor, go through a variety of things as it relates to retention, but there's nothing that I need to note to you. As far as fraud and illegal acts are concerned, we do not audit specifically for fraud, but it is always on our minds when we complete our audit. We inquire of those throughout the organization as we complete our audit as to any fraud or illegal acts. Nothing was noted to us during the course of those conversations. Had something been told to us, this would not be the first time that we're meeting, and we would make sure that we had audit procedures in place to address those particular risks. There's nothing that we need to discuss as it relates to going concern. In your financial statements, you have supplementary information, and we actually do what's called an in relation to opinion in that, meaning that we ensure that that supplementary information ties back to the audited information whenever it should. And finally, as an auditor, I'm always talking about things that happened in the past, but some stuff that's happening in the future. GASB 100 is going to come into play, which kind of codifies how you deal with accounting changes and error corrections. And then GASB 101 that changes a little bit of how you're going to come up with that compensated absences liability. We'll be working with management on that to make sure that we hit the ground running there. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Well, related to the audit.
Seeing no questions, Superintendent Connor, anything you would like to add?
Thank you, ma'am. And I just want to extend accolades to our accounting team, specifically Valerie Maggi and Regina Foss, who along with the entire department worked very hard to produce this accurate and comprehensive annual report. You know, the last few years have been challenging. There's been a lot of highly technical accounting requirements that have had to been implemented while trying to get a clean audit. So we really appreciate our team for that. The accounting team has earned the Government of Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellent in Financial Reporting for more than 10 years and is confident that this year's report will continue in that tradition. Earning this award is a great accomplishment with the purpose of creating a report format and ensuring information is available that evidences the spirit of transparency and full disclosure. So thank you to our team. Bonnie, thank you for what you do, and thank you for your presentation tonight.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.
This evening, we have 55 citizens who have filled out cards for public comment. In recognizing the importance of hearing every citizen that's signed up, we also want to reasonably get to the business of the school board. And I'm moving to amend the 3 minutes for public comment to 2 minutes for this evening's meeting. If there is interest to do so with my colleagues on the board, please signify by saying yay if that's something that you are interested in, or nay if you are in disagreement. My intent is to not only recognize our citizens, but realize getting to the business of the board 3 hours into the evening also holds merit. So, Mrs. Marinelli, if you could yes or no, please, so we could move forward.
Yes.
I would just
Mr.
ask, Madam Chair, I think it would be proper format to call for a motion and a second for this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duggan. I've made the motion. Do I have a second? Seeing no second, we will keep the minutes at 3 minutes.
Madam Chair, if I may make a comment.
Please.
I appreciate
please,
that
Mrs.
for the movement of the board. And I know that over this duration, we've had a lot of discussion around public comment. My only point of just hearing already noise from the audience, I think it's really important that as we proceed, that we ensure just proper decorum so we can hear each speaker.
Thank you, Mrs. Ziegler. We will move on and we will maintain 3 minutes. And I'd like to welcome you to the Hearing of Citizens segment of our meeting. This forum allows the community to engage with the school board on matters concerning our education system. Your insights are vital to our educational decisions. As we proceed to this segment, I would like to outline some important expectations to ensure that an orderly and constructive meeting about the business of the board occurs. All speakers should have submitted a completed comment card before this segment. Speakers will be called in the order received. Each speaker will state their full name and shall confine their remarks to the business of the school board. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. A timer will signal 1 minute remains. Please conclude promptly when the timer ends. Please address your comments to the board, not to the audience. We expect all remarks to be delivered in a manner consistent with school board policy. Abusive language, personal attacks, or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Please direct any personal grievances or personal issues in writing to the school board office. Audience members are requested to listen quietly and respectfully. Outbursts, applause, or other interruptions that disrupt the meeting are not acceptable. Any person that interferes with the expeditious or orderly process of this meeting after first being warned that such continued interference will result in removal will be removed. We appreciate your cooperation. Let's begin with our first speaker. Mr. Enos, please.
Yes. Up first is Joyce Peralta. On deck is Martin Hyde.
Joyce Peralta, good evening. We all wish we were doing something else tonight, so why are we here? We know Bridget Ziegler is not going to resign. We know the majority on this board, with the exception of Tom Edwards.
Excuse me, ma'am, I'm so very sorry. And you will get your time. If that is, the board has chosen to listen to every one of you, and I respect that, and I want to get through this meeting. But if you are not going to respect each speaker, I will empty out the audience, and you can wait one at a time. This is going to be an orderly meeting and a respectful one. We want to hear what this speaker has to say and what each one of you have to say. Please. Thank you. I apologize.
So why are we here? We know Bridget Ziegler is not going to resign. We know the majority on this board, with the exception of Tom Edwards, is not going to sign a letter to the governor to remove Mrs. Ziegler. How do we know this? Because Bridget Ziegler is on a puppet string with the controls held by Ron DeSantis and the Christian nationalists, as is the majority of the Sarasota board, sadly. Those controlling Bridget want her to hold on to the school board position at least until July 22nd. If she does, her master, DeSantis, can appoint another Christian national to finish Bridget's term until 2026. If she leaves now, the appointment would be temporary and up for election this November. As a Unitarian Universalist, I believe in the dignity, equality, and worth of every human being. So I truly feel sad for Bridget, as she must feel powerless to make her own decisions, the decisions that would be best for her and her family, her children. In a way, she's being held hostage here. What are the goals of the Christian nationalism? To abolish abortion, restrict LGBTQ rights, school choice, put Christian religion into public schools, and encourage and allow racism. If you have any doubt that this is the agenda of the majority on this board, look at what this board has done since taking over a majority a year and a half ago. If not for parents and taxpayers coming to these meetings, we would have an unqualified Christian nationalist as a superintendent instead of the qualified Terry Connor. We would have the unqualified Hillsdale religious group Vermilion creating our course content. Both of these were narrowly defeated. We've thought from time to time that maybe the rest of this board had seen the light. Sarasota public opinion does not favor the hateful Christian national agenda they promote. But then Karen Rose spends out taxpayer money foolishly again, insisting on a $40,000 unnecessary redistricting plan to hold on to power. It seems the only way to protect our kids is to change the board members. The first opportunity is this August 20th, when we can re-elect Tom Edwards and remove Karen Rose. Get your absentee ballot sent to wherever you will be this summer. Do not miss this important election.
Thank you very much.
On
Mr.
deck,
Hyde?
Mr. Hyde, on deck is Nancy Harris.
Well, good evening. Something slightly different. Not exactly the baying mob that fake news media promised. I've seen bigger lines of wokesters outside Starbucks. The few that are here disrupting the legitimate business of this school board have been encouraged, and let me be frank, by you, Madam Chair, and by you, board member, or current board member, Marinelli. An editorial in the SHT recently pointed out the reality that if Bridget was to resign, she'd be replaced by a DeSantis appointee. But it's not going to happen. We continue to have huge numbers of students not reading at grade level. We have many at the landings who think that woke indoctrination matters more. Our superintendent, who seems like a nice guy, just paraded a statistic, 90% graduation. By my math, a long time ago at school, that means 1 in 10 kids doesn't graduate. Why are we celebrating? We should be focusing on geography, not gender, biology, and the facts that pertain to that, not whether someone deludes themselves into thinking that they're non-binary. Bullying is encouraged by weak leadership. The be kind, woke mob hypocrisy is what's on display here again tonight, encouraged by the failed vote to remove Bridget Ziegler. This bullying has to stop, and the board has to make it clear that this matter is over. Bridget is staying, and for those who don't like it, it's going to be a tough year, because come November, Sarasota and this great country is also going to re-elect President Donald J. Trump, and I'm going to love it!
Next up is Nancy Harris, followed by Cynthia Rumpf.
Okay. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Nancy Harris, and I've been a 40-year school administrator in the public schools. I appreciate this opportunity to address you tonight. One of my biggest concerns and one of my founding beliefs is based on the U.S. Constitution as amended by the Bill of Rights. This Bill of Rights provides fundamental rights to all of its citizens: freedom of religion, free speech, and due process of law. These fundamental rights apply to young people as well as adults. Thus, the right to equality in education is part of the U.S. history and should include all history, not just white history or Christian history. This federal equality includes protection from discrimination in education based on sexual orientation, class, race, or disability. I am concerned that this board, in the past few years, has not taken that clause and its responsibility as seriously as it should. Please review your policies and ensure that they are as inclusive for all students as possible. I appreciate your attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cynthia Rumpf, and then up is Pam Zeck.
Hello, I'm Cynthia Rumpf. On 12/12/23, Martin Hyde, who spoke first on the public speaking, I thought was absolutely perfect. This meeting, 12/12/23, was a perfect example of why we need to focus on math, English, history, and science in our schools and to keep our personal business at home. I'm saddened how the public is allowed, is that me? I'm saddened how the public is allowed to bash the board when they are hired to do a job. I believe we should be allowed to give our opinion, but the board needs to be protected against this kind of abuse and needs to know the difference between the two, between opinion and abuse. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Pam Zeck, followed by Brenda Pastoric.
Hi, I'm Pam Zeck. Is this working?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you. Bridget Ziegler is a hypocrite who attacks the LGBTQ community while admitting to having sexual relationships with her husband and another woman.
Excuse me, please. We're not going to discuss anything relative to an individual board member's personal life. You can have your time. Please be respectful of board members. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay,
Appreciate it very
will do.
much.
I'm really upset that the schools are banning books, that teachers are afraid to have books in their classroom for fear that they will be fired. I think that we need to trust teachers to do their job and to educate students with every possible means at their disposal. This means learning all history of Black America, of indigenous species, of white America. It should be inclusive, and I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Brenda Pastoric, and on deck is Vicki Niswander.
I'm Brenda Pastoric. I've been here before, 25-year resident of Sarasota, former school board member in Connecticut. I first want to make a statement because I heard at the end of last school board meeting the question asked, have any books been banned in Sarasota School District? The answer was no. That is the truth. Now, to what I want to speak to Superintendent Connors, Chair Karen Rose, Vice Chair Tim Enos, other board members. Wise leaders are more necessary today than ever. The board's vision to improve the academic success of this district is being directed by a sound process and wise leadership. I am impressed by how you have systematically implemented your plan for improving our school district. The dismantling of systems that are contrary to that plan has been a necessary process. In fact, keeping said systems in place would only be an impediment to your stated goals. Also, your appointment of an academic leader who knows how to avoid good ideas that distract from great ideas will keep the process on target. No real progress can ever be made without the right plans being implemented by skilled people carefully placed in the right roles, shifting focus toward longer-term strategies and being patient on the journey. What the district was doing in the past needs to stay in the past because it was not advancing the third grade reading scores or several other important benchmarks. The continued progress of the new plans will bring about a change that will be seen and appreciated by all. So I urge you, keep your eyes on the goal. I will end with a quote from a very wise Jewish leader Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you obtain the prize. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vicky Nyswander with David Oakes on deck.
Good evening. I'm Vicky Nyswander. You chose to experiment with our children with the movement to school choice. Us taxpayers, including parents, want to know the effects of the change. Therefore, I suggest publicly available monthly and yearly reports that include how many students have returned to the public school system, how long have they been out of public schools, what school were they attending or were they homeschooled, what reasons were given as to why they returned, what grade level and discipline assessments indicate before leaving and upon return, assessments for funding return to public schools upon students' return, including the timeliness of the funds returned and how much. It was indicated at the last board meeting that there were over 150 public school students that did leave public schools, and the average amount that they receive per student is around $8,000. So we're we're talking about over $1 million that has left the public school system. I think there needs to be some accountability for all of this, and I hope we'll have regular reports on this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David Oakes and Marianne Tearle, Tearle, on deck.
Good evening, Superintendent Connor and board members. My name is Dave Oakes. I live here in Sarasota County. I served in the military for over 32 years and resided down here about 2 years ago. Superintendent Connor, a point you presented about student thinking caught my attention during your 16 January school board presentation, 100-day transition report. I went back to the slides. I even scanned Rachel Day's presentation to ensure I read it or heard it correctly. The bullet written on the theory of action slide was providing strong instruction that lets students do most of the thinking in the lesson. I recommend that you include the word critical, as in critical thinking, in that sentence. A person can infer that you are referencing critical thinking, but critical thinking may be a new term to new students or young students. I recently heard a comment while watching the movie Into the Light. The comment was, and I'm paraphrasing, if you don't read or listen to the news, you are uninformed. If you do read and listen to the news, you are misinformed. Our students, and again we, must all learn to identify credible sources and also assess alternate viewpoints. It's exactly why we'll watch and listen to the spectrum from left to right of the news. Normally, while watching the different traditional news and podcasts on both the right and the left, I'm astounded by the stark difference between the opinions offered. And let's just face reality. We no longer have journalists reporting the news. Every single day, we don't always hear the truth from traditional media, both right and left. Additionally, social media is being used as a massive weapon against critical thinking. Our students, young adults, and even we, must challenge everything we hear from the biased propaganda stated by traditional and social media. Worse yet, when media sources are proven wrong, there are numerous examples, we will, I dare say, never hear an apology or a clarification. If these untruths are told often enough without being challenged, people will believe these untruths. not because they make sense, but because that's the only thing they hear. Please encourage our young students, adults, to challenge what they read and or hear.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Next is Marianne Turle, and up on deck is Barbara Vaughn.
Madam Chair, Superintendent Connor, and members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, and Bridget Ziegler. I am Marianne DeQuino Turle, a Sarasota taxpayer since 2008, and a defender and advocate for the LGBTQ rights, or as we say where I'm from, equal rights. I was taught many years ago by my parents and the Sisters of St. Joseph who shaped my early education, and was continued by many exemplary students in the New York City public schools that completed it, that there were rules for forgiveness, and that when one has caused harm to another person, one must follow them. First, you must acknowledge that you have committed an offense against the other person or people, and actually ask how this made people feel. I think that's fairly clear. You have never done this, even after your egregious use of the name of a student in the district that you reputedly, that you purported to lead. Then you must empathize with the offended, with what the offended is feeling. Since I don't think empathy is a strong suit of yours, just imagine how you would feel if someone had done what you did to your child. You've never done that. You have to admit that the wrong was done. That's not part of your brand. Never explain, never apologize is how you roll. You must repent, which means admitting the wrong done, after which you must ask forgiveness. I'm an avid consumer of news and have never seen anything remotely like an acknowledgement of wrongdoing or a request for pardon. And lastly, you must make restitution. This is the easy part. You're really not fit to be a model of behavior for the children of this district. And you are dragging us down to your level. We're tired of you making Sarasota a laughingstock. Resign, Bridget.
Barbara Vaughn. Next up, Jim Kohler.
Good evening. I'm Barbara Vaughn. Most of you know me. I'm a regular here. The first thing I want to say tonight is directly to Bridget Ziegler. Please don't leave. Please stay where you are. We need you where you are. And when it comes time for you to be reelected, if you want to be, I'll be there in your court working for you. Tonight, I especially want to share with you, Ms. Ziegler, verses from Psalm 71. In you, O Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be put to shame. Rescue me and deliver me in your righteousness. Turn your ear to me and save me. My rock, be my rock of refuge, to which I can always go. Give the command to save me, for you are my rock and my fortress. Deliver me, O my God, from the hand of the wicked, from the grasp of evil and cruel men. And now, for everyone in the room, from Luke chapter 6, beginning with verse 41. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's or sister's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me take the speck out of your eye," when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrites, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. And now I'm turning to Matthew chapter 12, starting at verse 34. You brood of vipers, how can you who are evil say anything good? For out of the, can you hear me over the, You brood of vipers, how can you who are evil say anything good? For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good man brings good things out of the good stored up in him, and the evil person brings evil things out of the evil stored up in them. But I tell you that men will have
Thank you,
you
Mrs.
give
Vaughn.
account.
Thank you.
Jim Kohler. On deck, Dr. Mike Weddle.
Good evening. I would like to ask, what are the progressions in the case of Coach Carver's termination? A booster board member and I sat across the table from Venice High School Principal Moretsky, SCS Athletic Director James Slayton, Assistant Principal of Athletics Dr. Rainey, and Athletics Director Pete Dombrowski to get these answers. I had requested HR to be in this meeting, and I was told that Mr. Slayton could answer all HR-related questions. All four of these men continued to respond. There were a number of little reasons for his termination, and they could not release the information due to confidentiality. If I said there are a number of little reasons why I'm not paying my school taxes, would that be adequate? I don't think so. In the meantime, Coach Carver had accepted a position as head coach at Riverview High School, and he wasn't going to pursue legal action. I called HR and asked for the policy for termination of a coach, and they stated they didn't have one. Coach Carver was then prevented from coaching even at Riverview, as he is now. On what grounds should a coach be prevented from coaching in the county? Not these. I requested another meeting with an HR rep and Coach Carver to be present. I received an email reply from Mr. Dumas and a phone call from Mr. Slayton stating that I would not be granted this meeting out of a confidentiality to the coach. I stated that Coach Carver gave me permission to discuss or quote unquote, permission to discuss the matter with the powers to be, and the authorization to hear every reason why he was terminated in an email. Mr. Slayton, acting out of his HR powers, stated that he doesn't know the legal aspects of this, but they aren't going to grant me this meeting. Coach Carver deserves an answer and has since received a reply from A.D. Dombrowski of inaccuracies, trumped up charges against him, and these are all false. Were these reasons made up to cover the butt of A.D. Dombrowski for false termination of a coach, or because of possibly misappropriation of funds of a booster board? I'm sure it wasn't because he was a whistleblower and had so much honesty and integrity to turn in the inappropriate actions of the head football coach, Peacock, of wiping Jamie's desk off onto the floor. Oh no, not that. The board member brought to light that the football kids recently called lacrosse kids just pussies with sticks. Is that appropriate? I'm calling for the reinstatement of Coach Carver and termination of A.D. Pete Dombrowski for lying and terminating a coach under false statements. Our kids.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Weddle. On deck is William Dobro.
I'm Mike Weddle. I thank the board for the time, Mr. Superintendent. As another speaker mentioned, I also heard at the last meeting that there were no banned books in Sarasota County. I will remind the board that less than a year ago, in 2023, the board received a written complaint from the National Coalition Against Censorship for the Sarasota County banned library materials. So let's get it right. And I want to be clear, I'm not passing judgment on this book. I have the utmost respect for Mr. Menugan. I think he's a professional, the library materials manager. So I'm not saying this book should or should not be in the schools, but it happens. But since Mrs. Ziegler asked that question and brought it up, I'd like to remind everyone of Stamped, the anti-racism book for young adults that won the National Book Award. The School Media Advisory Committee said the book should stay. The District Advisory Committee said the book should stay. Mr. Menugan said the book should stay. Mr. Duggan had no objection to the book. Ms. Marinelli said she would vote to keep the book. Mr. Enos made a motion to keep the book. Then Mrs. Ziegler made a last-minute amendment to require librarians to talk to parents before letting students see this one book. And she still voted against having the book in the school, even with her own amendment. The board seemed so worn down by the debate that the amended motion passed. Was this book, Against Racism, banned? For the student whose parent can't be reached by a cell phone, it's a ban. If the librarian is busy, it might be a ban. If parents think something is wrong with the book because the school's trying to reach them by phone, then it's a ban. And most kids don't come to the library with a reading list in their pocket. If it's not on the shelf for them to discover, it's the same as a banned book. A really nice way to celebrate the beginning of Black History Month would be to put this important award-winning book back on the shelf. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
William DeBrow and Richard Stammer on deck.
Hi, I'm William Dobrow. I'm a Sarasota County resident, voter, and taxpayer. And I'd like to discuss something that I brought up at the last meeting regarding the speaker cards that get signed. And we need to get some control over that because at the last meeting, there was a name called twice, Nora Mitchell. And that was at 3 hours, 47 minutes and 10 seconds into the meeting. I believe Ms. Rose said she had 2 cards. She called Nora Mitchell again at 3:50:28. There was no Nora Mitchell at the podium that night. So in order to prevent any fraudulent filled out speaker cards in the future, I'd like to reiterate my request to require photo ID and Sarasota County residency in order to get up here and speak to the board. I appreciate the board's decision to put this distracting matter to rest and move forward regarding the circus. So to demand anyone's resignation or write a letter to the governor to ask for the resignation, ask for him to write a letter or to fire anyone on the board who got 69,818 votes would be just because some group of activists decided that they wanted to come in here and cause trouble 3 months in a row, would disenfranchise over just about 70,000 voters. And I appreciate you guys deciding to put that to bed and put that to rest and to move forward. There was one other thing, and I'm running out of time. It's on the bill that was passed into law known as the Parental Rights Bill. And I just wanted to say that nowhere in that bill does it say, "Don't say gay." The main point of contention, I believe, is classrooms instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur in kindergarten through grade 3 in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Richard Stammer. On deck is Allison Sneed.
Thank you, Board and Mr. Superintendent. I'm Richard Stammer. I'm a member, a citizen of Sarasota for 21 years and retired in child welfare. I've been here before Again, I had to force myself to get into the car and drive here tonight, not because I enjoy this or find it fun, but because I find it very serious and necessary, and I'll continue to come as long as I feel that it's necessary. First, I look around the room, and I heard the word evil used earlier, and frankly, I don't see any evil people in here. I see people who care about their children, and there may be some misguided people here, but not evil. I also have problems when people stand up and say that the only job of a school is to teach children to read and write and cipher, but they cannot learn to read, write, and cipher if they are made to feel excluded, ostracized, different, if they're in an environment that is not conducive to learning for those reasons. And above all, if they're denied the right to have a free exchange of ideas that's so necessary in a democratic society. I've heard that we're not banning books here in Sarasota. Instead, what I have heard is that we're wholesale removing them before we even have a right to see that they're banned. Removing a book is the same as banning a book. And I take great issue with that, and tell me if I'm wrong. And then the other thing I just wanted to comment on, and I do this with my own humility because I don't enjoy doing this. I really do not. I would rather be somewhere else. But this board voted recently for Ms. Ziegler to resign. Did they do that just for show? And I certainly agree with that vote. And I would like to see it happen because I continue to feel that she is a distraction to the board and to the community and to the work of our school board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Allison Sneed, I'm going to pass.
Thank you, Ms. Sneed.
Next up is Robin Williams, and on deck is Sheila Van Ness.
Robin Williams. History honors the courageous, not those who capitulate in the face of adversity for their personal benefit. The righteous among the nations were those individuals who at great peril saved Jews during the Holocaust. Most under Nazi rule, however, went along to get along and protect their jobs and status. In Florida and in Sarasota, we have senior black residents who as children faced segregated schools, buses, bathrooms, lunch counters. Overt racist policies permeated every aspect of public life. The Holocaust and Jim Crow are part of Florida's curriculum. Understanding atrocities and past wrongs should inform how we comprehend and respond to what's unfolding before us. Yet, we've acquiesced to chilling statutes that restrict accurate teaching of that history and its inconvenient truths. We've gone along to get along with policies targeting our LGBTQ+ students for harassment and potential violence with Ziegler's Don't Say Gay law, and now ominous bill HB 1639 that would require trans men to put sex female and trans women to list sex male on their driver's licenses, putting a target on their backs for violence. Anytime their ID has to be presented, they'll be outed to potentially prejudice police, bartenders, salespeople, poll workers. It's reminiscent of the laws the Nazis imposed in 1938 requiring Jewish men to add Israel and women to add Sarah on their official IDs. Our school district has rewritten its instructional and library material guidelines to conform to chilling state statutes. Legislators kowtowing to DeSantis before his failed presidential bid passed these fascistic laws. Some are now having second thoughts. Your main obligations, board, are to our children, teachers, and staff. It's time for a paradigm shift. Non-compliance with censorship and unjust laws helps preserve democracy.
Coordinate with your school board organizations and administrator associations. Show solidarity. Rosa Parks didn't follow the racist rules and wouldn't sit in the back of the bus, and we're all better for it. If Ruby Bridges at the age of 6 had the courage to integrate an all-white school, show some spine and resist enforcing rules you know are outrageous. Stop claiming no books are banned while some books can't be purchased, some instructional materials are no longer available, and most social studies textbooks were banned from ever being adopted by the Florida Board of Education. Protect our teachers' academic freedom and protect our most vulnerable students.
Thank you.
Sheila Van Ness. And on deck, it's William. It could be Haynes, Haness, I believe. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Board, for allowing us to speak. I would like to make 2 propositions. I would really think that it would strengthen your face with the public to support public education by signing an affirmation that all of the children and all of the families of the students in the school district are to be respected and affirmed. And this would include the LGBT families, Black families, Hispanic families, and people of all backgrounds. And if you made an explicit statement to the public, I think the public would have more respect for this board and would feel strongly that you really care about every child every day. All right? Second point I'd like to make to you tonight is that I think that we're not utilizing the people, the talented people that live in this community to help mentor our students, to bring them up to par so that when they're tested, we can have more success. I think that, for example, individuals now have to find a school, go through the vetting process to be able to tutor children, and there's no central organization to systematically do this for every child in the district at every school. I would be happy to work with somebody on a project like that, Superintendent, and I know that a lot of people are interested in serving, but it has to be systematically organized, and we could get thousands of people, retired teachers, for example, who would be happy to contribute to this community. Just facilitate that, please. Thank you.
William Harless. On deck is Carol Lerner.
Good evening again, and good evening again to you, Miss Bridget Ziegler. My name is William Harless, and I'm a Venice High alumnus and a tax-paying resident of Sarasota County. I would say that I'm happy to be back, but I am not. We are not. The community, teachers, students, parents, and Sarasota are tired of coming here to request the same thing over and over, to be heard as citizens, and to have our publicly elected officials recognize and adhere to that. While Mr. Tom Edwards has decided to publicly remove Ziegler, Ms. Karen Rose, we have seen the opposite with you. Unfortunately, might I remind you, Ms. Rose, and the voters of Sarasota County, that your seat is up for re-election this year. And while you voted at first to request Ziegler to resign, you've since given up on this school board and the trust that citizens will have the due process that they deserve in electing a real board member. However, I want to bring up something far more important. As an alumnus of Venice High School, a school that's recently removed Choke by Chuck Palahniuk, it is concerning how some members of this board cosplay their fear about literacy rates, while ironically go on and on and on and still participate in book bannings and promote book bannings, which is supposed to be part of the solution to these declining literacy rates. How do you go up here and say that we need to remove these books, but yet our literacy rates are declining? Isn't that a bit ironic? During my time as a student, I had conversations with librarians who told me how scared they were for the freedom of reading, the literacy rates, the threats they would receive from maybe students or parents, or maybe even pressure from their own board members about just trying to do their job and to promote what is supposed to be the fun and fondness of reading. How are you still up here and promoting such flagrantly fascist policies? That's something I don't understand. Because at the end of the day, these librarians or teachers are not able to use their First Amendment rights to protest these outrageous policies, as their teaching contract hangs over them year by year. Teachers can be fired without notice. So they're not actually able to come up here and say their real thoughts. The students have to. How are teachers supposed to be role models and standing up for what they believe in if they're not even able to stand up for what they believe in? Tell me that. So, Mrs. Ziegler, how are you in the same breath concerned over literacy rates, but proudly promote banning the solution? Finally, to Tim Munoz, Karen Rose, and Robin Marinelli, your future voters are watching, and they will remember your complacency. So, start writing the letter to Governor Ron DeSantis calling for Mrs. Ziegler's removal, and finally start putting students first every day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Carol Lerner. Next up is Sally Sells.
Good evening. Carol Lerner, Support Our Schools. At the last school board meeting, Robin Marinelli and Karen Rose said that because they are constitutional officers, they must follow all state mandates, even if they disagree with the policies. Neither one indicated which policies they disagree with, yet both indicated that citizens addressing school board meetings should not speak on the local implications of state policies and laws. Rather, Rose said that we should take our issues to Tallahassee and concerns ourselves locally with a narrow definition of student achievement. Hey, taking our issues to Tallahassee is what I and others have been doing all along. In fact, I will be joining several people in this room this coming Monday in Tallahassee in a lobbying day organized by Equality Florida. How about Ms. Rose and Ms. Marinelli joining us? But because Tallahassee laws and policies are implicated locally, it is equally important to address and challenge them locally as they affect the very issues that Ms. Rose and Ms. Marinelli raised, that is, Sarasota student achievement. Ms. Rose and Marinelli comments, while not said directly, were also aimed at starting to shut us down on our demands that Ms. Ziegler resign. Yet the stunt Ms. Ziegler pulled at the last school board meeting with a list of phony questions to Mr. Connor, yes, we know the Zieglers are very good at making lists, illustrates why we insist that Ms. Ziegler must go.
Excuse me. It's not going to start. I will empty this room. Exactly. Thank you. It's a matter of respect. We have students watching. This community is a great community, and we're going to be respectful. You will certainly have your time. I apologize for interrupting you, but we're going to be a respectful, civilized, professional audience. Thank you very, very much. Very appreciated. I'm sorry, I apologize. Please proceed.
Her first phony question was, are we banning any books? To which Mr. Connor said, quote, to my knowledge, we have not banned any book, unquote. But had she asked if the district had removed any books or instructional material to satisfy state laws supported and shaped by Ms. Ziegler, the answer would have been different. Her second phony question was asking if we, quote, are allowing the teaching of slavery and civil rights, unquote, to which Mr. Connor answered, quote, per state standards, yes, unquote. But what wasn't said was that the standards have been drastically revised and whitewashed and include historical untruths, like saying that, quote, slaves developed skills for their personal benefit, unquote. Her last phony question was an enrollment and whether last year's HB 1 bill that instituted universal education savings accounts had affected enrollment.
Mr. Connor said that while actual enrollment is down by 150 students, the district's projected enrollment was down by a staggering 880 students. This is why we have a freeze in hiring. Again, something very much affecting Sarasota's student achievement. Ms. Ziegler has spent the past 10 years lobbying for bills like last year's HB 1. Her children in private schools may be directly benefiting from the law. Imagine what $4 billion, the projected yearly cost statewide, could do for public education. Now that would really address student achievement.
Thank you.
Sally Sells. On deck, India Miller.
Hello, my name is Sally Sells, and I'm the mother of a fifth grader in the Sarasota County School District, and living proof that not all British people are like Mr. Hyde. Here we are again. I did plan to write a speech tonight, but I wasn't sure on which topic. I was going to talk about school choice and how it can be amazing, but how it can also be very confusing for a lot of parents, particularly those new to our area. Wouldn't it be wonderful if all our schools performed at the same level so we didn't need school choice? Oh, and on that note, might I add that I am a Manatee County resident, but thanks to school choice, my daughter goes to school in Sarasota County, so I do belong here, even though my driver's license says differently. I then thought I would talk about school vouchers and how they seem to be designed to destroy public education while at the same time benefiting the more affluent in our community, such as Ms. Ziegler and her mother-in-law. I also thought I might need to talk about the need to teach the meaning of consent to our children and just how important it is to understand exactly what consent means. And then I wasn't going to show up at all, so I didn't prepare anything beforehand except these few notes I just threw together on my phone. I wasn't going to show up or prepare for anything because, to be honest, I'm just sick and tired. I'm sick and tired of thinking about the school board. I'm sick and tired about thinking about what programs you are going to remove or what new teaching style or program you are going to try and sneak in under the radar to move our schools towards a more Christian private school curriculum. I'm sick and tired about thinking about what I'm going to say. I'm sick and tired of going through the nerves, anxiety and fear I go through before I come up and speak here every time. I'm sick and tired of taking time away from my family. But most of all, Ms. Ziegler, I'm sick of hearing and saying your name. I can only imagine how you must feel. I will give you credit as you do show up every Tuesday and face us all for over 3 hours as we call out your hypocrisy and ask for you to leave when we all know that your husband couldn't last 37 minutes, 38 tops, and that includes his drive time. Yet I did show up as I promised myself I would keep showing up and asking you to leave until you do just that. In the words of the marvelous India Miller, just go. We don't want you here. But as we all know, apologies and personal accountability are not so big in the Ziegler household. So it looks like yet again you won't be going anywhere. So I guess I'll see you next Tuesday.
India Miller. Next up, Alex Lieberman.
Hello. I guess I'm the wonderful India Miller. Thank you. You know, I'm here because of Bridget. I'm like, why are you still here? That's why I'm here. You know, we talk in our mission statement, I believe it is, that, you know, the highest learning standards, you know, by engaging a high-quality staff. The head of that staff asked you to go, and you're still here. Every single member up here asked you to go, and you're still here. I know Karen wants to cut our time short, censor us, not have us speak about the truth of what's going on here in Sarasota and the broader issue of what's happening in Florida. The hypocrisy that we're encountering is just like, it's unheard of. I mean, Mrs. Marinelli, who's like, I'm going to be here till midnight or until the end of, you know, I love midnight owl, this is all great. It's like the first one to raise her hand and say, shut these people up. I'm not going to shut up. I'm not going to stop coming. I'm going to keep coming until you step down. I'm not allowed to talk about your personal life, but I want to talk about Ernst Röhm. This is not about any one of you school board members, but he was one of Hitler's elite staff. He ran the stormtroopers, the most brutal part of the Nazis. And he was a man of, like, he was gay or bisexual, and a liberal newspaper outed that. It came out that he was. Hitler stood by and supported him because he could still use him for his political needs. And Röhm's own internalized hatred from growing up in a religion that persecuted him and parents that were disappointed by the decisions that he made in his life and didn't understand it. Hated himself so much that he projected that internalized hate on other gay people to the point that they were killed. You talk, we're not banning books, but are we? I'm not talking about Bridget Ziegler, I'm talking about Ernst Röhm. But am I? there's a famous quote, and I wish I could remember who it was or exactly what it said, but it's about, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Thank you. I have to go because I can get like a felony for using the bathroom and go to men's prison, and I know that you're going to enforce the law.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex Lumit and I'm a student at Pineview School. Ms. Ziegler, I encourage you to leave the school board. I know you're not here right now, but instead, your laws that you have supported have personally affected students like me and made us feel uncomfortable and unloved at school. You cannot claim to support students when you actively work to make them uncomfortable at school. This is why you need to step down from your position on the school board and resign. How can you claim to work for the benefit of students when you are actively working to ensure they are made to feel uncomfortable at school? That is not your position at the school board, and I encourage you to please step down. I know you're not here right now. Maybe you'll hear about this later, but please, Bridget, please step down. You are making all of us hurt. You are making queer students uncomfortable, and you have not benefited a single student in this county. Thank you, everyone.
Next up is Bill Neese, followed by Victor Rowe.
Well, my name is Bill Neese, and I'm a grandfather here, engaged in this community in a variety of levels. And one of them is to ensure that there's a voice here that is trying to be a little encouraging. I appreciate the budget, the things were shared on the fiscal responsibility of this district. One of the key promises made that has been kept by this current board is fiscal responsibility and transparency. It's not a hot topic, usually, just like any other budget discussion. To some in the public, budgets are an endless list of figures and terms that make little or no sense. No offense to whoever gave that. But that's the way a lot of people just kind of roll their eyes. But to those who want to ensure stability and sustainability, they are essential. For you, as the board members who want to simply getting the facts concerning the budget has taken a lot of searching, hard questions in pursuit of the truth. It takes doing the hard work behind the scenes. That is done with little or no thanks most of the time. So if it helps any, thank you. Boards are given that responsibility, and only good ones will make sure that the fiscal house is in order and transparent to the public. I know your work regarding this isn't finished, but you are on the way to creating a better future, even if it means that hard decisions have to be made, just like parents having to tell their children, we can't afford that. And nobody likes to hear that. Or a business that has to say to their employee, I have to let you go due to declining sales. Hard decisions and careful planning are a part of future success. Those who want to complain about adjustments to income and expenditures are not in the role of facing fiscal realities. As a business person, I have to do that all the time. As a board and district leadership, I want to commend you for facing the role of executing your duties as financial stewards in a way that will set the course for a successful and prudent future. And only a firm financial basis can do that. A district out of order financially will begin to make a lot of mistakes. So I thank you for that and the wisdom behind it.
Thank you, sir.
Victor Rowe, followed by Wendy Rosen.
Good evening. My name is Vic Rowe, and my comments here tonight are my personal opinions only and do not reflect any organizations that I'm a member of. What is your philosophy of primary and secondary education? My dad did 3 terms on a 5-member publicly elected school board. Despite the fact that he was a conservative, a retired Marine captain, and a retired police captain, he always had the support of the teachers' union, This is in New York. So why? It was his philosophy of education. He believed good education required only two main elements: good students and good teachers. So where do good students come from? They're the product of good teachers. Good teachers need to be recruited and trained by the district. The primary method the primary method doing that is to eliminate excessive administrative positions and allocate that money dollar for dollar to teachers' salaries. This requires courage to stand up to bureaucracy. Do you have it? It's time to get back to focusing on reading and math scores and stop pandering to the pseudo-Lippin proletariat and their directors here in the peanut gallery. That's the end of my prepared statement. But being here tonight, something occurred to me, and I just want to bring it to your attention. For about the last 100 years on the right, our message has been love your neighbor. And on the left, it's been hate your neighbor. But why have we been losing for 100 years? Think about it. Thank you.
Wendy Rosen, followed by Xander Moritz.
I kind of saw that the exact opposite. I went from Republican to Democrat for just the reasons of acceptance and love. Bridget, you don't get it, so I'm going to try just one more time, maybe 2 or 3 more times. Every single parent in this county, many in this state, have had to explain to even their youngest children what's going on with this, with your life. And you owe every one of these parents an apology, a public apology. And you know, that's the easy part of all this. The more difficult task for you will be to admit you're wrong to your own children. A simple "I'm sorry" that comes from the heart can go a long way.
Excuse me, ma'am, we're not going to discuss family members of
All right.
school board. You'll have your time, but please, if you want to address a board member, do so, but please leave family members out.
Okay. I'd like this board to stop hating others, to stop blaming others, to stop judging others, to stop leading double lives, and to stop trying to control others. I'm sure that all of you want this to go away. We do too. If you want this to be a battle of will, that's fine. But you need to understand that there are more of us who are coming to these meetings to speak. Take a look around. We're grandparents, we're parents, even students have found the actions of this state, this county, offensive. We need to put political ambition on hold and put our children first, and I'd like to see you do that. And I have not yet received an answer about my question from the last meeting, which was, how many teachers have we lost? How many students have we lost? How many have gone to charter schools or private schools? And how many students have we gained? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Xander Moritz, and followed Dr. Sonia Howman.
Bridget, since it was revealed that you built your career, your policy platform, your organization, your life on a lie, things everywhere have begun to change. The Sarasota residents who genuinely hate gay people, a value you tried to frame as your own, feel betrayed. They want a real homophobe, not a wannabe on this board. The people who knew you were lying but joined you in your pursuit of power anyways feel anxious. Last November, 70% of candidates that Moms for Liberty supported lost their elections. Because of what's been happening during these meetings, across the country, Moms for Liberty chapters are changing their names and erasing any association they had to your hate group, and Moms for Liberty itself released a statement emphasizing their distance from you. Every single one of your peers called for you to resign. The communities in the party that have supported you have cut their ties and turned their backs. You built an entire movement of hate upon a lie, And then right when it mattered most, you tore down the curtain and said, ta-da, everything I stand for is a lie. And in doing so, in showing the world that you do not believe in yourself, not only did you seal your fate, but you sealed the fate of Moms for Liberty. Now I think you don't know what to do. And so month after month, meeting after meeting, lie after lie, you keep digging a hole thinking it's going to take you somewhere, but it's just taking us to rock bottom. So I want to beg you, because I can feel it in your soul and I can see it in your eyes that this was not the plan, to imagine a life where whether you mean it or not, you apologize and you step down. The only difference it makes is whether you step down now or whether you're removed later is how much I have to suffer, how much you have to suffer, how much they have to suffer, how much our home has to suffer. That's the only difference. But you can put us all out of our misery right now. I mean it. I genuinely mean it when I say it is not too late, and it is literally never too late to do the right thing, Bridget. Please.
Dr. Sonia Howman, followed by Elizabeth Bornstein.
Good evening, school board members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, although I could think of a million trillion things I'd rather be doing tonight. My name is Dr. Sonia Howman, and I am the mother of 4 children who either have attended or are attending Florida Public School. I'm a physician and a Christian who is commanded by my faith to love others as myself, including you all. Again, I have no judgment about Ms. Ziegler's private life because it's her private life, and I would have made the same speech 6 months ago. I'm asking Mrs. Ziegler to respectfully step down, not just because you're a huge distraction and this takes forever, but because you seem unwilling or unable to fulfill your duty as fiduciary for every student in this school district, even the LGBT children, even the children who aren't white, even those who imagine are not Christian. When you walk up into this building, you see the words, every child, every day, which I presume is part of your mission. Now, how woke is it to say that every child under your purview deserves a safe place to go to school, the comfort of recognizing themselves in a book? From your tolerance of slurs directed at other board members, to your inexplicable attempt to install vermilion in this district, causing existing students fear and difficulty accessing education, as a previous speaker and a student attested, I want this board and all elected officials of Florida to realize the country is watching us. We've been here before, watching the persecution of minority populations. We've been through segregation. We've been through the lavender scare here in Florida, the McCarthy trials. And you need to know, I want all of you to know, my God, administrations that roll back citizen civil rights, that remove access to books, banning, removing, I don't care what you call it, that prohibit the learning of a full and accurate history are almost universally condemned in time. Can you hear me? Have you seen the elections that have been occurring in Florida? We love our civil rights as Americans. We're proving that at the ballot box every day. Please listen to me. So let's take a step back here and realize that the eyes of the country are on Florida and you're part of history. Which side of history, personally, will you be on? The side that advocates for equal treatment and protection for all American students? All American students that the Constitution commands us to have available? Or are you going to continue to keep these children from reaching their full potential? Okay, on gender, and the last thing I wanted to bring up here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Elizabeth Bornstein, followed by Clayton Taylors.
Welcome.
Thank you. Greetings, Superintendent, board members, board attorney. My name is Elizabeth Bornstein. I'm a taxpayer, a parent of a student in the district, a level 2 volunteer for 7 years. I'm here in support of public education. I'm here again as a concerned and involved parent and to help hold the space for those who are unable or reluctant to attend this meeting. I always like to shine the light on some of the good stuff. I'm grateful for the communication and collaboration at my child's school. It's great to see her learning and thriving there. It's great to see the collaboration among the administrators here and the school's police tonight. Collaboration is essential for the success of Sarasota County Schools. It's executed through our clearly defined mission and vision and based on transparency, effective communication, trust, and safety. And as a district, we have so much to be concerned about. The costs of HB1 privatization, curriculum, library materials, retraining, or retaining trained and experienced teachers, taking care of all students, improving their learning outcomes, not disenfranchising them, improving the mental health of our students and their well-being and the teachers as well, and decreasing bullying and prioritizing safety, just to name a few. Regarding safety, on my way here, ironically, I was listening to the Crumbly verdict, the high-profile case in Michigan about parental responsibility, where the mother was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter for the gun rampage of her son, a student, 15 years old, killed 4 students, injuring 7 others. His parents gifted him the gun. The son pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. His father's trial's coming. The son had a known mental health concern, and it was well documented. His parents opted not to provide assistance for him despite his asking for it. It's chilling, it's frightening. It sounds somewhat familiar to a situation not that long ago here in our district at Lakeview Elementary. It's reassuring to know the district's focusing on metal detectors as a possible way to ensure safety, as we saw here tonight. I guess we'll be seeing him in the school soon, and as sad as that is, I'm relieved as a parent of a student. Please, board members, let's stay focused on our students, their safety, their well-being, their learning, and stop with the distractions. Make the students a priority. It would really help if you could find ways to restore trust. The lost, badly broken trust limits the effectiveness of the school board, of all of our schools and the school board. You know, I hate to have to bring it up again.
Thank you very much.
Clayton Taylor's. On deck is Anya Dennison.
Hello, my name is Clay Taylor. I'm here representing myself and no other organizations or boards. First, I want to thank the board for sticking to the financial and educational matters of the county. As a taxpayer, and I had a student go through the Laurel Nokomis and Venice High School program. So I want to thank you for all your good work in steering the ship into a better direction. I want you to stand strong. I want you to keep the girls out of the boys' bathrooms, the boys out of the girls' bathrooms, protects women's sports. Keep the boys out of the women's sports. I want you to eject the evil yellow flag waivers. And I think that we should be focusing and sticking to the laws so that parental rights are upheld. I think whenever someone says book banning, they're saying, let's put pornography into our school system. So you need to pay attention to that. Don't pay attention to their code word. Pay attention to what they're trying to do. Scholastic and the American Library Association are actively pushing pornography into our libraries and schools. And they're going to laugh, but pornography is the entry thing for pedophiles. Okay, so I want to address 2 other things. First, there's some change orders on the agenda. Change orders are a sign of challenges in construction projects. So please pay attention to the architects and the project managers and make sure we're not losing taxpayer dollars that could be going to teachers with huge change orders. It's a sign that the architects are not doing their jobs and they're not reviewing the facility, whether it's old or new. The third thing I want to address is the issue with the Venice athletic director. We have a culture and tone problem there. There is no equality on the grass field for the other sports beyond football. So Tom Dabrowski needs to go. He should not be advanced. I have sent a public records request to find out why there's no 990s for the booster clubs. There was up till 2019. There are none now. And the booster club owns the touchdown club owns the scoreboard on school property. So why was the other Venice teams not allowed to use the school board? Where's the equality in that? So we have an issue there, and Coach Carver was a great coach. We watched him through Sarasota Seahawks, and he formed the teams at Venice High School. We wouldn't have a lacrosse program there. And here he's bucked up against the football coach and Dabrowski. And I had personal dealings with Dabrowski. Dabrowski can't keep the rats out of the press box.
Sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anya Dennison, followed by Nicole Walkowitz.
Hi, I'm Anya. We're doing our absolute best to be amicable. You're saying people can't address the audience and then letting them. What's that about?
If you could speak up, please, or pull the mic towards you so we could hear you.
Hi, I'm
Thank
Anya.
you.
We're doing our absolute best to be amicable. You're saying people can't address the audience and then letting them. What's that about? Karen, you have said we have students watching. We have students here spending their evenings at the meeting. The students are in the room. Respect them. Bridget, if you truly wanted to remove books for student safety and well-being, you'd want to talk about it, not hide the facts from the public. When you ignored process and banned a book without abiding by predetermined standards, you wrote to Allison Foster, asking someone to file a formal complaint versus pulling a book that we, the district, all agree should never have been permitted in the first place will only further undermine the faith us, your constituents, have in our district staff and leadership. We, the district, know what is right and must do what is right. If someone, us, your constituents, wants to challenge us for removing it, I say bring it on. So, Bridget, we're bringing it on.
Thank you.
Nicole Walkowitz. On deck is Jessica Thomason.
Give me a minute. Do I sound all right? So my name is Nicole. I'm 20 years old now, and I'll start off my speech by saying, in your life, you will experience some form of disability. For most people, it's 65. For others, it's from the start. For me, my story started when I was 18. Unbeknownst to my entire family and I was born with a rare aneurysm in my brain known as an arteriovenous malformation. I won't go into all the details, but I will tell you that for at least 3 hours, my brain was without oxygen and blood had thoroughly damaged a good part of my frontal lobe. Before my aneurysm, I, simply put, was not disabled. I was in the gifted program, tested at a 141 IQ. No one could tell anything was wrong up until senior year when I started to complain about major, painful headaches. I stand before you today as an epileptic with permanent short-term memory loss and chronic pain. And while I'm trying my best to get to the point I was before the unimaginable happened, I am well aware that my life will never go back to 2 years ago. I may never go to a big university or navigate life without accommodations and medication. But I know I need to ensure that the next group of kids after me who will either be born with or acquire a disability will have the same shot in education as I did. I say all of this because I can't imagine how any student with a disability in Sarasota could feel welcomed as you, their public school officials, pretend to respect all students of Sarasota County while you're pouring in time, money, and attention into private education and voucher programs that will remove these marginalized demographics from education. I understand if you're confused, but did you know that private education and to an extent magnet schools don't have to support students with disabilities the same way public schools do? And when they do have to take care of disabled students, which only applies to those with an already diagnosed disability, they rely entirely on public education for that special education. Truth be told, as someone with chronic pain and fatigue, I'd rather not be speaking, but I find this board's silence and lack of commitments to ensuring disabled students' rights to education to be truly disturbing. Under Bridget's leadership, the voucher program was never truly denounced, and the same can be said about Karen Rose's leadership. You may not be in charge of the legislation, but I know some of you have co-written legislation before. Clearly, you have some power here. If you don't understand by now, I'll spell it out for you. As you continue to push hardworking and understanding teachers out of public schools through your interpretation of legislation, bad pay, and allow for the allocation of funds meant for public schools to private education in an attempt to delegitimize public education, you are effectively killing the chance for disabled students to get a good education by eliminating the one system that supports those who teach students with disabilities and those with a disability. I wonder, will you start calling for the implementation of accommodating services within these safe havens against woke for disabled students, or will you continue to rally behind parents' rights while denying the parents of disabled students the basic right of accommodation in education? Do you plan on advocating for these much-needed services within private education funded by taxpayer money through vouchers, or do you plan on ignoring the disabled students of Sarasota the way you have?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Jessica Thomason, followed by Julie Forrester.
Good evening, board members. My name is Jessica Thomason. I'm a parent and a substitute teacher. At the end of the previous meeting, some of you stated that you must follow the law, even though you don't agree with all the legislation. I think most of us understand that your authority is limited by Tallahassee and the governor who endorsed you. But while it's true that you don't make the rules, you are tasked with creating policies that enforce them, and your opinion on and interpretation of these laws directly affect students and teachers. So I think it's a reasonable request for you to let us know where you stand ideologically on these issues. I have 2 examples that I'd like your feedback on. While subbing last week, a 3rd grader asked me, "Do you have a husband?" They'll ask you anything. And I answered yes. Was my response appropriate? And would your opinion be the same if instead of a husband, I had a wife and had said, "No, I have a wife"? Would it be appropriate then? I hope you will say that of course it's appropriate, but you should understand that some teachers in this community are afraid to answer that question, and they need to hear you say it. A trans woman, a previous speaker, had to leave this meeting early tonight because she needed to use the restroom and did not feel safe to do so here. Because if she stepped into the women's restroom, she could be arrested for a misdemeanor for trespassing. If she went into the men's restroom, she'd likely find herself face to face with one of the angry and aggressive men here tonight. You may be a constitutional officer of the law, but you can also be an advocate if you choose to be. You could let everyone here know where in this building is a single stall restroom. You could ask the police in the lobby to please assist in clearing a restroom if anyone needs privacy. You could condemn the actions of the Honorable Bridget Ziegler when she chose to wear a transphobic t-shirt intended for the sole purpose of making marginalized individuals feel less than. You could look at her and ask that she cease this disruptive and dishonorable behavior. Please tell the public, are you okay with her behavior? Mrs. Rose, in the words you just used to lecture the audience, is it civilized and professional? What can you do to make trans kids feel safe in school in spite of the legislation? If I told you it was illegal to sell vanilla ice cream to black kids, would you do it anyway? What if the year was 1960 and it was the Jim Crow South? Then what would you do? You're doing it now. How you choose to navigate the current legislation is the answer to that question. I don't expect you to break the law, but I do expect you to mitigate the harm those laws are doing to our community while actively pursuing ways to change them. I'm asking you tonight to be an advocate for every student, teacher, and family in our community because you can be. And if at some point you can no longer insulate them because the law leaves no ambiguity with which to do so, it is then that you have the moral obligation to do the right thing no matter what the law says. Please set the record straight tonight. I look forward to member comments.
Thank you.
Julie Forrester, followed by Steve Russell.
Hello, school board members. My name is Julie Forrester. There are so many issues I have with what's happening at this board. It's hard to know where to start. I'm going to start with you, Mrs. Ziegler. Sorry, my phone closed. Whom I have tried so hard to have compassion for. As a mother, a wife, Woman, I've tried to put myself in your shoes. I have felt for you when I think of all the things that have come to light which are not appropriate to be discussed at this meeting. But as you continue to stand behind Christian, I find myself completely unable to relate to you. It is absolutely infuriating and unacceptable to have a school board member participate in this kind of charade. As an assault survivor myself, I have to tell you that we as a community need to focus on healing. And as a school district, we definitely should not be allowing this kind of mockery of the justice system to continue to take center stage when we've got so many other important issues to be working on. Speaking of charades, that brings me to the rest of the school board who, except for Tom Edwards, thank you, Tom, were completely unwilling to take any kind of meaningful action to remove Bridget from her school board position. If you think we all don't see through you, you are mistaken. We see you and we are tired of your unwillingness to take a stand for the children in this district, and we are ready to vote you out. The most ironic thing about all of this is that Moms for Liberty talks about protecting kids, but our children now need to be protected from one of the group's original founders. Please take a stand and protect our kids from the hateful, hurtful, detrimental, discriminatory, not to mention hypocritical policies that Mrs. Ziegler has pushed. We need our school board members to take a stand against harmful policies. Mrs. Marinelli, at the last meeting you spoke about how it is your job to follow the laws. Do you think Rosa Parks should have followed the law and given up her seat on that bus? Sadly, in the political climate we're in, I would argue that it's your job to ensure that our kids' interests are represented and protected first. This means interpreting the laws and deciding what policies should and can be implemented in a fair and impartial way to ensure the needs of our children always come first. So I'm asking all of you to take a stand for our children tonight, to stand up and say enough is enough and let the governor know it's time for Bridget to go because she is the worst kind of distraction to this school board. Our school board is being held hostage. When the rest of the school board members and the head of the teachers union and community members on all sides of the aisle ask you to resign and you don't, there's no other way to look at it. I'm asking you all to further vow to protect our children, especially the marginalized kids, like they were your own kids or grandkids. Because sadly, the political climate we're living in necessitates that. Thank you.
Steve Russell. On deck is Jerry Rippo.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Steve Russell. I didn't intend to speak on gender tonight, but since the first speaker did, I felt necessary to correct them. There's some science stuff in here that I had to look up myself, and I'm sure other people will, but it's fact. So on gender, please defer to science. People who are scientists, physicians, and hormone experts know that gender is complex and in part is a social construct. Conditions like 5-alpha reductase deficiency results in a genetically male person, but with outward female sex characteristics, who develop male sex characteristics at puberty. This is just one of the many conditions that demonstrate even biological sex can be non-binary. Gender identity has physical, social, and cultural determinants, so please refrain from speaking about that which you are not informed. Bridget, you've made a lot of harmful statements towards the LGBT community. You've hurt a lot of people. You do not represent the entire student body. Please resign.
Thank you.
Jerry Rippo. On deck, Hannah Silva.
Welcome, Mr. Rippo.
Thank you. I'm here because people come here before the board to drag the district into the past. They bemoan the loss of the people that have been on the board before and our superintendent. And they bemoan the policies that we've had. And most of the policies actually weren't advancing our district, and on a cursory survey of the facts could prove that point of the view to be unfounded. The board is choosing a superintendent that has a vision to lead with accountability, which was the first and essential action that had to be taken, ridding the district of the strategic plans that had very few metrics to evaluate, and replacing it with a plan that has benchmarks has become the current policies, which we need. We need to know how our students are doing. Academic achievement in a safe environment is your number one focus. Do not just be distracted by the peripheral issues that have nothing to do with the academic success of our children. A solid commitment to expand the voluntary pre-kindergarten education program is one of the many ways to ensure academic success for our children. For their early days, they will be ready to start school years as a sense of I can do it. They need to be encouraged. They need to know how to read. They need to get on course. And then they can experience an enjoyable learning experience. With the board's commitment to such a plan, the superintendent's leadership, I, along with many others, look to the future and not to the past. I look forward to regaining what we have lost and advancing for our future. And I think our board here is doing a good job. I think we need to continue on focusing on our children, focusing on the reading programs, focusing on encouraging them to enjoy education, not to fall behind, because when they fall behind, they get discouraged and they become a problem not only to themselves, but to this classroom and to the teachers, and then they end up uneducated in our school system. And when they graduate, they are not able to read at the grade level that they're supposed to be. And I encourage each of you to continue on and make our children be successful and make our teachers also. And thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hannah Silva, followed by Lisa Shore.
Welcome, Hannah.
Hello. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Hannah Silva, and I'm a senior at Suncoast Polytechnical High School. I'm sure you're tired of us showing up week after week, and believe me, I am too. But I promise you we won't be stopping anytime soon. But to keep things fresh, I will be directing my comments to the entire board. At the last meeting, several comments were made by members of the board regarding following and acting within the law. These comments ignored the role the school board has in interpreting and enforcing said laws. School boards in Florida have the power to interpret laws regarding education and implementing policies that serve their community best. According to Section 4B of Article 9 of the state constitution, district school boards may, quote, exercise any power except as expressly prohibited by the state constitution or general law, end quote. School boards have the jurisdiction to decide how a law is interpreted in their county and how a law is applied in their county and how to interpret the law. With House Bill 1557, it states that schools must adopt procedures to notify students' parents if there's a change in their services or well-being, but it is never specified what qualifies as a student's services or what counts as a change in their well-being. Since this isn't explicitly detailed in the bill, it was up to you all to decide how to apply this legislation, and you all chose to put a target on the backs of your queer and trans students, putting them at risk in their home life by forcibly outing them to their parents. This policy was a choice. It was never explicitly required in the bill or in any other form of legislation. It was a policy that you all chose to implement. Other counties, like Leon and Pinellas, however, have succeeded in staying within the bounds of the law without harming a vulnerable population of students. They've implemented training guides for school staff use to learn more about the experiences of LGBTQ students and how to be respectful of their identity without violating policies passed by the states. They understand that they have the power to interpret the laws to best support their students, and maybe it's time our school board does the same. And if it isn't obvious that your seat on the board has power, groups like Moms for Liberty have spent over $50,000 on school board races in the state of Florida alone to get their own people elected on the board, while real estate developers spent $29,000 in Q3 alone to fund Chairwoman Rose's 2024 campaign. You all have the ability to make positive change in this county. You all can pass policies and initiatives within the county to support all your students. Students don't deserve to feel like they're being punished for something they cannot change, and they should feel like they have a school board that cares for them. If you all say that you care about the students, then start making positive change to prove it. Do better.
Thank you very much.
Lisa Shore, followed by Rana Bazzini.
My name is Lisa Shore. I'm a taxpayer and a resident of Sarasota County. I'm here tonight to talk about the infamous Ziegler list. No, not that list, the other list, the reasons why she should leave this board. We've already covered the fact that there was a sort of a lie of omission, if you will, at the last board meeting when you didn't bother to let people know that you had, in fact, removed the book Choke from the library. And let's be clear, it was two high school libraries. This wasn't in kindergarten through 5 or 6 through 8. I'd also like to point out, none of this is news, so I'll just sort of try to run through it quickly. You worked for the Leadership Institute, where your first allegiance was to the highest bidder. They paid you a whole lot more, I'm guessing, than the Sarasota County School Board, so you did their bidding. You resigned from that job, but you're not willing to resign from this job. I'd love an explanation of why that's the case, unless you were, of course, told resign or we'll fire you. You gave your allegiance to the Moms for Liberty, put them first. We know how that turned out. The Vermillion debacle. You tried to sneak in an inexperienced, unqualified consultant to sanitize our curriculum in line with the alt-right Christian nationalist Hillsdale curriculum. Just ask the folks at Penridge how that turned out for them. You also, folks, want to remember that Mrs. Rose threw her lot in with Mrs. Ziegler on that Trojan horse attempt when it comes time to vote in August. Another Ziegler and Rose fandango, I think you'll see a trend here, politics before education always, was the firing of our highly esteemed Superintendent, Dr. Asplin. There seems to be a Ziegler MO, modus operandi here. When you got nothing to show for your 8 years on the school board, throw the superintendent under the bus. And then I have to laugh to myself every time I hear you pontificate from the podium about hyperbole and trigger words and so on. You're the queen of the culture wars. You gave us those words. And who can forget how the Zem team aligned themselves with the Proud Boys in their sycophants, only to have Mrs. Ziegler unceremoniously kick them to the curb after the elections. Who remembers the Proud Boy, I think it was October 7, 2021? Can't remember the exact date. The Proud Boy promising Bridget, we've got your back if you've got ours. And boy, did she, until they weren't useful anymore. And then there's the absolute piece de resistance, the absolute hypocrisy of the Ziegler family hunting games and sexcapades. And now their current attempt.
Excuse me, please, we're not
It
going to
speaks to character,
discuss
Karen.
the personal.
Speaks to character.
We're not going to
While we're going to
discuss
talk
the
about
personal
character,
life
let's talk
of
about
a
your
board
character.
member.
You sit up there and try to limit our constitutional rights to our First Amendment. You stood up there and said, I'll stay here till midnight. And you were the first one to back up her thing to cut it down to 2 minutes. The hypocrisy across the board, with the exception of Mr. Edwards, is amazing.
Thank you, Mrs. Schur.
Rana Bazzini.
Welcome.
My name is Rana Bazzini. Good evening, everyone. This is my 7th year attending school board meetings. When I first started attending these meetings, we were in the process of getting rid of a superintendent because of sexual things. I feel like deja vu all over again. But I do not want to address that. I want to talk about something totally different. The Florida Senate moved forward Senate Bill 1788, which bans access to social media for children under 16. Does anyone really think this will keep those under 16 from accessing it? Social media is the poster child for my very favorite word, agatha-cocological. It's made up of both good and bad. There are many good things about social media, but there are also many bad things. If I'm a little bit spacey tonight, I spent 3 hours watching the United States Senate hearing on protecting children online. It had all the elements for great drama: grandstanding senators, defensive social CEOs, and the very heartbreaking appearance of parents of children who had been harmed by the various social media platforms. Many yes or no questions were asked, which actually needed nuanced answers, which of course were not what the questioners wanted. I was very impressed with Senator Tom Tillis of North Carolina. Let me paraphrase what he said as he addressed the CEOs. It is your business and interest to get it right. We could regulate you out of business if you don't do that. What was my takeaway from those 3 hours? Companies need to clean up their act. Congress must pass sensible regulations. What I found missing was the part the students play. What parts do parents, society, and teachers play? Lately, the answers seem to involve not protecting children, but overprotecting them. Change schools, go to safe places, beware of trigger words. All of these things are geared to avoiding a threat. Once emerging from these cocoons, the threat is still there. It's like sending soldiers off to war without any training or weapons. Let our children enjoy all the good things about social media and give them the ability to recognize and deal with the threats. I'd like to suggest, sorry.
Thank you very much.
Brendan Byers, followed by August Ray.
Welcome, Mr. Byers.
Good evening. My name is Brendan Byers. I'm a senior at Suncoast Polytechnical High School, and I'm here to talk about how at last meeting, Bridget said the school district hasn't banned any books yet. Yet you, Bridget, have played a major role in removing books from Sarasota schools, avoiding labeling them as banned, resulting in books being pulled off shelves, and keeping teachers from teaching curriculums they've maintained for years. I witnessed all these changes firsthand last year in my AP language class. When we read factual nonfiction books, I'd have my parents consent to read A History of the World in 6th class by Tom Standage. Great book, by the way. I was 17, old enough to see an R-rated movie, and yet in order to read a historically accurate book, I needed my parents' signature. This is deeply unacceptable. Bridget, you and the organization you've created claiming to help students has only served to harm them. You're keeping truthful and informative books out of our hands and harming our educations. Pulling books from Sarasota County schools that have LGBTQ+ themes or feature people of color and mentions of class services like Lawn Boy, for example, wherein you, Bridget, bypassed the review process and had it removed from Riverview High School, going over the heads of the public just to get the book removed even though you knew it was wrong. You isolate these students and make them feel even more unrepresented in media, and now teachers are scrambling to adjust curriculums that they've taught for years without any issues, because now they need to step on eggshells to fit the guidelines you've implemented. By the way, I just wanted to mention, you guys are saying we can't address the crowd. However, before me, you have let people address the crowd. Hypocrisy should not be involved in our school board. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
August Ray, followed by Paulina Testerman.
Welcome, Mr. Ray.
Hello, my name is August Ray, and I'm a senior at Sarasota High School. I'm currently a bit under the weather, so sorry if I sound a little nasally. Truth be told, I should probably be at home resting, but change hasn't happened within the board, so I must be here. And I'd like to address Chairwoman Rose by saying a few weeks ago, you ended the board meeting by saying, "We, the board, are constitutional officers, and we are under the law to align our policy, our procedures, and our systems to the law and to the legislation. We are not the legislators." But the state law intentionally provides space for school board interpretation of the law. That's why you have counties like Sarasota County, ones that have predatory policies like adding trans students to their parents when they ask staff to refer to them with different names or pronouns, and counties like Broward County, where an employee receiving information about a student's gender identity or sexual orientation doesn't require them to notify parents, and instead, they adamantly believe that it is never appropriate to divulge the sexual orientation of a student to a parent without the student's consent. I know a few of the board members here have formerly been teachers and guidance counselors. So why might a student come to you first about something as important as gender identity or sexuality? To me, the answer is quite obvious. A student will only have these awkward and difficult conversations with a non-parent if they feel scared or uncomfortable having them with parents or legal guardians. If they felt like they could safely confide in their parents at home, they would. So when you hear that students aren't doing that, and you require teachers and counselors to notify parents regardless, not only are you willingly placing a student in a potentially violent situation, you are also permanently destroying the trust the student has for their school resources, to the point where queer students don't feel safe in schools anymore. So maybe you were talking about the book policy in schools when you said that. However, that policy is also subject to interpretation from county to county, which is why you see books like Choke being restricted, pulled, contested, challenged, and trapped behind parental permission forms in this county, while the same books are freely accessible on shelves in other counties. The difference between a banned book and a book in a school library that is inaccessible to the students it was meant for is purely an issue of semantics. Bottom line is these books cannot be easily checked out and read by students, and a school book that can't be read by students might as well be a banned one. As school board members, your job is to interpret the intentionally vague language of the law in a way that benefits the students of the county. And as school board members, you are failing. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Paulina Testerman, followed by Beck Lane.
Welcome, Mrs. Testerman. Good evening. Good evening. My name is Paulina Testerman. Here we are again. Nothing has changed, and it's like it's Groundhog Day all over again. Mrs. Ziegler is still committed to remaining on the board despite our community providing 7 hours of public comments asking for her resignation. Your presence today, Mrs. Ziegler, on this board does not reflect the will of the public that you were sworn to represent. Mrs. Ziegler, while you may lack humility, this community is humiliated for you. Having your personal laundry hung out to dry for all the world to see must be mortifying. How does a heavy dose of your own medicine taste? Today, I'd like to submit new evidence of Mrs. Ziegler's hypocrisy. I wish someone would start keeping a log. According to the recent released police report, Mrs. Ziegler, you were interviewed on November the 1st by the police regarding the incident, and I'll just call it the incident. According to the report, you stated that you weren't surprised by the extramarital activity of your husband.
Excuse me, we're not going
Please do
to,
not censor
we are
me.
not going
Mrs.
to
Ziegler
get
made her
into a
bed,
board
and she should be
member's
held accountable.
personal.
This is about her. This
We
is
are not
about
going
her
to get into a
character,
board
Mrs.
member's
Rose.
personal.
This is.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
This.
We are not
Point of
going
order.
to get, you are welcome to have your time. We're not going to get into a board member's personal life.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Ziegler made her bed. She needs to lie in it. This is accountability.
Madam Chair, point of order.
LGBT community. They deserve an apology.
We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
We will return at 8:25. Thank you. 1 minute, please. We could get back to public comment, please.
Emails, I've never seen them.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone returning to their seat. Mrs. Testerman, if you could please not go into the personal life, would be very much appreciated. Please proceed. It's my understanding you have 2 minutes. Thank you very much.
I'm going to continue with my speech as I was speaking. According to the report, you stated that you weren't surprised by the extramarital activity of your husband. That sounds like maybe you had an open marriage, which I'm certainly not here to judge.
Excuse me.
Mrs. Rose, I want to be respectful. I really do. But I am not here to negotiate this. This is my right to hold my elected officials responsible. I'm sorry you disagree. I'm sorry that this is personal. And I don't mean for it to be personal, Mrs. Ziegler, but you make it personal with our children. With our children. So if you understand why we're passionate about this, this is a taste of your own medicine, and I don't enjoy this. Have my time back, please. I'm not here to judge you. But what I do take issue with is the fact that 16 days later, Mrs. Ziegler, you were in Illinois giving a speech on abstinence and marriage at the Abstinence and Marriage Education Partnership event. Do you think that that organization supports open marriages like yours? I'm guessing not. And there you were, on your pious soapbox, spewing the virtues of traditional.
This is a warning to the audience. If the outbursts continue, we will empty the chamber. Everyone will have an opportunity to speak, and you will be called from outside. If the outbursts continue, this is a formal warning. This is one more outburst, and we will take a 15-minute break, and the chamber will be emptied. How much time remains? Thank you. You have 1 minute.
Is my mic muted, ma'am?
Your mic is muted.
Why is my mic muted? These are public comments, and they're supposed to be recorded. I know my rights, Mrs. Rose, and you're trampling on our constitutional right to hold our elected officials responsible. So if the people at home can't hear what I'm saying, that's a problem. I'll wait until you can turn my mic on so I can do my whole speech. Because I deserve 3 minutes. Because I worked tirelessly on this speech. Time away from my children to come here every 2-3 weeks. Is my mic on? I'll wait. Show some integrity, Mrs. Rose. Is my mic back on?
Mrs. Tompkins, how much time remains? Thank you. You have 49 seconds.
I am not going to speak until my mic is on and that the YouTube feed can hear what I'm saying. So I'll stand here and wait. But I won't leave this podium until I've done my speech. I've given everyone else their 3 minutes. You're cutting off my mic because you don't like what I have to say. shouldn't have made it. Shouldn't be having to do this. I have my 3 minutes, and I'd like to read my speech now with the mic turned on. Show some integrity, Mrs. Rose. Be a leader here. Make sure everyone's voice matters, not just the ones that fit your narrative. I'm waiting for my time, and I'm waiting for my 3 minutes, and the mic to be turned on. I asked the attorney whether I have a right to speak and have the same amount of time that everyone else is given. Can somebody please lead on that board? I hope that you are not putting yourselves in the crosshairs of lawsuits when you are making sure that people's voices are muted here. You should know better. This is not how you should lead. This is not leadership.
Madam Chair, I genuinely appreciate the way that you have handled all today. You can see the teacher in you, and I do not want to overstep. However, given that the nature of the comments are directed to me and are clearly of a personal nature, and I understand you're trying to elevate the decorum, I am okay with it continuing. However, I don't want to disrespect the preference that you're trying to set, and I do genuinely appreciate it.
You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mrs. Ziegler. Is my mic back on, please?
We will resume your mic per Mrs. Ziegler's request.
I'm glad Mrs. Ziegler knows how to lead the board more than Mrs. Rose does. That's not saying much. What I do take issue with is the fact that 16 days later, Mrs. Ziegler, you were in Illinois giving a speech on abstinence and marriage at the Abstinence and Marriage Education Partnership event. Do you think that that organization supports open marriages like yours? I'm guessing not. And there you were on your pious soapbox spewing the virtues of traditional marriage while personally not practicing what you preach. How do you sleep at night? How can this community trust you when you lie through your teeth? Maybe it's time to drop the whole stand by your man routine. Maybe it's time to dig deep and abandon your brand and trade in for some integrity, some humility, and some humanity for not only yourself, but maybe for your family. Because yes, I do care about the other people. Mrs. Ziegler, I don't have to look far to find evidence of your actual goals and ambitions in public education. I only need to hold you accountable to your own words. Just 3 months ago, Mrs. Ziegler, you hosted a podcast with your Moms for Liberty co-founder, Tiffany Justice, entitled, quote, "It's Time to be a Disruptor" with Bridget Ziegler. A disruptor, Mrs. Ziegler. A disruptor, is that really what you want to be? Don't you want to be a problem solver? Maybe a community leader? Why not an advocate for others? A champion for public education even? But rather, you co-hosted a podcast on how to be a disruptor. Good news, Mrs. Ziegler, you've certainly accomplished your goal. You've disrupted this board, our schools, our community, and the work that needs to be done to save public education. I often reflect on how you got here, Mrs. Ziegler. What molded your values, morals, and principle? How did you lose your way? Why did you sell your soul to the highest bidder? Often people state that religion is your guiding light for what is right and wrong, and I know that you attend a local church. What I find ironic is the fact that based on the tenets of the Bible, I'm a better Christian than you are, Mrs. Ziegler, and I'm not even a Christian.
Beck Lane, on deck, John Alexander.
You're welcome.
I'm Beck Lane, and that is a hard act to follow. A brilliant speaker, and I really wish I had prepared better. I planned to last month when I was here. I've never spoken before. I've sat in the peanut gallery, it has been called, and listened to people tell Bridget Ziegler to please stop and go home, which apparently isn't sinking in. So I'm going to tell you what you inspire. I cannot do better than the speakers that have been up here, especially our younger people. They have been phenomenal, and I feel like I'm trying to stand in the shadow of giants. But I want to tell you what I inspire, or what you, not I inspire, you inspire, Bridget. What you inspire. You actually inspired me to get a chest binder, so that I could show, I could show society that It's okay. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not prepared. I got a chest binder, and I decided to wear bow ties. I've been taking all my dad's old ties that he wore to court and to the White House, by the way, and to see senators and congressmen. And while he was writing laws that we all follow, by the way, my father authored a number of laws that rule this country. I've been having them made into bow ties. So I put on my chest binder and I go out in public with my bow ties and I wait to hear from the bullies. I pray to hear from the bullies. Please, come talk to me. I'm not a 12 to 17-year-old who comes in here and tells you how negatively you have affected your life and you still stay. You still stay. But I'll tell you who else you inspire. You inspire those bullies, the ones that I can deal with because I was brought up with wolves and horrible people, so I can handle it. But they're taking it on. They're taking on the harassment, the mocking, the bullying, and we see it every month. 12 to 17-year-olds having to deal with grown-ups who will drive all the way from Venice to bully them. I am angry. At the last meeting, I had to get up and sit next to two gentlemen who are mocking, harassing, bullying, photographing, and videotaping children. Under your nose. Under your nose and at your behest. I am so angry that this is what you inspire. You put these children's lives in danger, you put vulnerable people's lives in danger, and you invite bullies to come in and proudly march around and explain to us how brilliant this hatred is.
John Alexander and Sebastian Martinez. John Alexander. All right, I see no John Alexander. Sebastian Martinez, please. And on deck is Carl Brown.
Welcome, Mr. Martinez.
I had to change my speech that I originally wanted to give, but it's absolute cowardice and spineless leadership, Karen Rose. En español, es puro mierda que tratas los comentarios como un comunista. You have no damn business being an American elected official if you can't handle accountability, if you censor and mute public comments that you do not agree with. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Mr. Superintendent, my name is Sebastian Martinez, and I'm a graduate of Booker High School. And today, I wanted to talk about the importance of protecting expression. I'm upset because I had a really nice, calm speech on building on our amazing educational programs, and if you know me, I always try to be nice to everybody. Expression isn't just important for students, but for our educators. I've heard from many educators negative stories of the administrators that oversee them. From being made to take on the brunt of the workload of the administrator, since at times the administrator doesn't have the knowledge or the experience, all while getting paid much more, to being outright manipulated and forced into taking actions that they do not support. This isn't just a single school, but at so many of our schools across the county, and it merits a closer look. Our educators should have a way to honestly express their concerns of the conditions they are under, without fear of losing their job. This can be done with surveys and questionnaires directly handed to teachers and then collected in a manner that protects the teacher's identity, so they do not fear a chain of bureaucracy who will punish them for speaking out. Our teacher appreciation weeks and small celebrations mean nothing if we are not continuously bettering the atmosphere our educators live in, and we cannot know what they need without asking them directly. But expression isn't just important at our schools or for our teachers, it's important at the landings as well, Ms. Rose and Ms. Marinelli. You supported cutting down it to 2 minutes so fast and then rolled back your stance seconds after. As an American citizen with migrant parents, I know, understand, and cherish the freedoms I have that are protected in this country, especially the First Amendment. This board has time and time again chastised members of the public for their comment, and this is actually one of the areas where I'll agree with Ms. Ziegler's approach. As an elected official, it is part of your job and duty to sit and listen to your constituents, their concerns, their insight, and everything in between. Not cutting our speaking time, not threatening to clear the room, and not being so anti-First Amendment. I understand focusing on school board business 1,000%, but I mean every single school board member, excluding Ms. Ziegler, agreed that Ziegler staying on the board will cause irreparable harm to our school district and business of the board. In the past, this board referenced multiple parents and saying they are using the venue in a political manner. One of those parents is candidate Ms. Barker. But before Ms. Barker is a candidate, she is a parent of 4 students in our schools and a PTO president. And in my personal opinion, more invested and connected to our schools than you are, Mrs. Rose. Before these kids are advocates, they are your students, Sarasota County school students, current and former. Why do you hate them so much? Because they may not like you? Because they won't vote for you? You act concerned about students hearing about a sex scandal. It's all throughout the internet and in our schools. You're more concerned about community members talking about it at the boardroom than the actual board member it follows. Public general comment, a time period that can be used to share insight into the schools you play no active role in.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Carl Brown. Next up is Connie Bruni. I'm sorry, Carl Brown.
I'm here.
On deck is Connie Bruni.
All right, so I didn't want to come here tonight, but I was forced to come here. You guys don't like answering emails from people that actually have students in your district. That includes you, Mr. Superintendent. And I would not be celebrating the fact that 90% of your students graduated. It should be 100%. And I've heard these folks over here talk poetically about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. They have no idea what they mean. No one cares who they sleep with, who their husband, girlfriend, whatever is. But you do not have the right to indoctrinate children into homosexuality and transgenderism. It's just not right. You're not going to do it with my son. You will do it over my cold, dead body. You will not do that to a kid. And I asked a question of you, Mr. Attorney. The whole thing when this clown show started, there was no second on the matter of dealing with Bridget. No second till Karen Rose came back after the fact and seconded it. That is not right by Robert's Rules of Order. They talk about kids. They talk about wanting to educate them. That's not what they're here for. If they were, they'd be talking about why students graduating this year can't read our founding documents. That's crazy. They can't read the Declaration of Independence in all of its original glory. They can't read the Bill of Rights that these folks wipe their backside with. They talk about it, but what they mean is you can talk so long as you agree with us. Well, I'm telling you, I'm an old fireman, and so I keep things short and simple. You will never, ever hurt my son.
Please address the board, sir.
No, they need to be addressed too. And Karen, I'm going to address you. You, after the fact, seconded the motion. So you're responsible for this show. And I am a voter, and I am a Republican.
Thank you very much.
One last thing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Connie Bruni.
I am an American. I was born this way. And I'm tired of hearing people talk shit about me.
Connie Bruni.
Welcome, Mrs. Bruni.
Next up is Billy Cox.
Good evening, I'm Connie Bruni. I'm a taxpayer here in Sarasota County. I brought Robert's Rules of Order with me, And I do want to read to you Section 47.6, subsection 6. The presiding officer of an assembly, it is their duty to protect the assembly from relating to debate, to enforce the rules relating to debate and those relating to order and decorum within the assembly. That is the role of the chair of any meeting. So I hold the chair responsible for the decorum that has occurred here this evening, and I want that on the record. I wrote you all yesterday, and Mr. Connor, and thank you for responding. I did write back to you with regard to items number 10, 27, and 32. I have continuing concerns regarding those items. With regard to Robert's Rules of Order, I intended to be more nice, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and read what I had to say in my email. I made a suggestion to you all, 2 suggestions, constructively, that would help with this discussion. Number 1, when a person fills out a speaker's card, you could allow county residents who live in this county, which is easy to show by your driver's license, 3 minutes, and non-county residents 1 minute. That is done in the city of Venice currently. And also, those who live in the county are receiving priority over those who do not. It is something that obviously is being done successfully in another municipality, and I think you should consider it. The other has to do with, I'm going to read what I wrote because I got upset. If I can get to it. Item number B, that if it's on the agenda item, that they speak first, and then the non-agenda items could go at the end, when the cameras perhaps are gone. Because what we're seeing is political theater that seems to be for the enjoyment, empowerment, and entertainment of certain people. It's sadistic, and it's wrong. Verbal diarrhea going on in the boardroom is just not constructive. We have to get back to educating kids and not being concerned with everybody's personal life. There are any number of things that could be said about anybody's personal life. I've sat in this room when conservative speakers who are speaking about another member of this board, and I'm not going to name people, were actually cut off and surrounded by the police. I can't imagine why that wasn't done earlier tonight. And I do hold the chair responsible for that lack of decorum.
Billy Cox, followed by Esther Rockwell.
Welcome.
Hey, thanks. It's been a long time since I was here. 6 or 7 years ago, I guess it was, maybe, 3 superintendents ago. But anyway, I'm here because of all of the stuff that's going on. I just wanted to share a scene from a couple of years ago when the House Bill 1557, Don't Say Gay Bill, was moving through the legislature. I went to a gathering downtown at 5 Points Park just to kind of see what was happening. And people were speaking up about what's going on in Tallahassee. But the only one person I really remember was this public school student who stepped up to the mic. She was 14 years old, and she appeared to be alone. She said she was there because she was having identity issues, and she couldn't tell her parents because she was afraid of how they would react. But there was one person she could trust, an adult who knew she wouldn't judge her. And that was a teacher with whom she felt her secret was safe. Now, suddenly, because of what was happening in the legislature, this girl was terrified of losing that connection, and she didn't know what to do. At the end, she broke down weeping, and I wish I could unsee that. And I wondered today what happened to her. I've seen how easy it is to resort to bumper stickers when personal ambition joins with political emotions. Bridget, I'm pretty sure that as a mother, you would never deliberately attempt to hurt a child. At least not directly, not to their face. And I think if you or anyone else on the board had seen this kid that day, you'd have seen her grief. And I can't help but think you would have at least had some compassion for her. And this reminds me of a scene from Mad Men involving main character Don Draper, Draper's a marketing hotshot who was very cynical about some of the images his agency's wealthy clients and benefactors paid him to peddle. His own identity was as phony as a $3 bill because he was escaping from a brutal past that he hoped he could outrun. And there was only one person in the whole world he could trust, and that was the widow of a dead soldier whose identity he assumed in Korea. Anna knew everything about him, and they could talk candidly. Anna tells Draper that closeted misery doesn't have to be his destiny, but Draper isn't convinced. He says, people don't change. But Anna tells him, we live and learn. And my hope is that every one of us here today is a student, and that we all are lucky enough to have a teacher we can trust.
Thank you.
Esther Rockwell, followed by Peggy Mormon.
Welcome, Mrs. Rockwell.
Hi. Hi. My name is Esther Rockwell, and I have been a resident of Sarasota for 38 years. First, I want to thank this board for accomplishing what it was required to do by improving academics, restore parental rights, give us greater transparency, taken out CRT, and parents are included in their children's decisions. When Bridget Ziegler was evaluating superintendent candidates, she wanted one that would focus on reading, math, and science, which is what they need to learn instead of woke theology. Despite all we hear about banning books or censoring books, I have heard that no books have actually been removed, although someone has said otherwise. But fortunately, they have not had to be removed because the kind of books that was considered to be included into class was pornographic. I would like to submit to this board this executive summary of images of children, crime and violence in Playboy, Penthouse, and Hustler magazines. This research was sponsored by Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, United States Department of Justice. The principal investigator was Dr. Judith Reisman. It provides a study how pornography and violence in the media affect the incidences of sexual abuse, exploitation, family violence, and juvenile delinquency. This project was funded through this same office, the U.S. Department of Justice, in 1987. This research could provide us why we are experiencing so much sex and violence in our nation today. When the police and the FBI questioned men who sexually abused children, they were often told they used pornography to desensitize children into accepting it. Now, I would like to answer some of the negative responses that were made against Bridget. They have hated Bridget from day one. Why? Because she's a conservative. I'm a conservative, and they don't like me either. But the nation has changed. The nation has now become more conservative because they don't see what's happening today. And they call everybody, well, they don't like what's happening in Florida or Sarasota. Well, if that's the case, why are they all moving here? And when I was growing up, our biggest problems were running in the halls, chewing gum, and playing hooky. What kind of a problem do we have today? I think we ought to go back to having a conservative country, and we wouldn't have the problems we're having today.
Thank you.
Peggy Mormon, followed by Sebastian Gerstel.
I have a sign that says, "I'm so proud of my trans grandson," and I really am, but that's not what I want to say today. I'll take one of my 5 pairs of reading glasses and figure this out. My name is Peggy Mormon, and I'm here to support the call for Mrs. Ziegler to resign. I find it impressive, actually, that you remain on a board that has voted unanimously to expel you. I'm honestly impressed by your strength. I am. But I was an English teacher. Don't want to scare anybody. But I was an English teacher, and I think you're underestimating the power of story. And any story that involves secrecy and desire is going to be riveting. And a story in which police appear at some point is a mystery, and they're very gripping. So I don't see this story going away anytime soon. And I'm sorry about that, because I think that what you're going through has become a source of pleasure for people who see it as justice. And I feel bad using the word pleasure, because I feel that's wrong. It's become a source of schadenfreude, and it shouldn't have been. But I think a lot of what's happening here is the result of pain that your organizations have caused to children. I do believe you mean well, but your meddling in children's most personal choices, including what books they read, is harmful and arrogant. And if any adult in my school had behaved that way, they would have been in mandatory counseling. However, last time one of you spoke about reading scores, and there's been a lot of discussion of that tonight, I ordered gifts for you. I only have 3 because they only had 3 in stock, and I'll leave these for someone else to give to you, but I'm sure you know how to share. I'll bring the others next time. My daughter, the daughter of an English teacher, had trouble reading. She had an odd visual processing issue. When she was in 3rd grade, I started to panic, and I was a teacher, so I studied the Orton Annals of Dyslexia, which is a professional journal. I found a tutoring program that was developed by a teacher here in Florida. Her mom taught, or maybe her mother-in-law, taught at USF. She was a Montessori teacher, and she developed a program for homeschooling parents. They claimed that with their program, any child with an IQ over 80 could read at grade level within 12 hours of instruction. It was completely outlandish. I decided to try it. So the nearest practitioner I could find, because where I was living, nobody really listens to someone from Florida, which is incredible snobism, but the way it is. The nearest practitioner I could find was a few hundred miles away, so I took my daughter out of school, which of course is against my religion. Within 4 days, oh, please.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Sebastian Gerstel, followed by Sandy Armstrong.
Welcome, Sebastian Gerstel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the school board, Superintendent Connor, I am Sebastian Gerstel, junior at Ruby High School. Accountability, transparency, and fairness are 3 fundamental values required for an institution to gain and retain the trust of those it services. One area where we lack these values is in our internal investigations. As I engage with more and more teachers and staff at RHS and across the district, one of the most alarming grievances I repeatedly hear is how good people, honest, innocent, hardworking members of staff have been abused by our broken system, which are our internal investigations. Which is why for the past few weeks I've discussed with some of you personally reforms for our investigative process, and earlier today I sent you all my 10 proposed reforms that would keep staff and students safe from unjust investigations. It is fundamental to have this written directly in policy to maintain those values of accountability, transparency, and fairness. I hope to see some revised or added policies in the future that target this issue. Additionally, I would like to bring focus to Agenda Item 33. The aquaculture, or as we call it, the Aquadome at RHS, is what makes Sarasota schools a growing magnet for families. The Aquadome allows students to develop their skills in marine science, and it offers our students the only IB marine science career pathway in Florida. One of the key projects that they do is the raising, tagging, and releasing of native snook species. And when you think about it, it's quite an amazing program for high schoolers to be able to get involved and develop hands-on experience. If you are given the opportunity, I would strongly encourage you all to pay a visit and, of course, vote yes on that item. And there's one more item that I'd like to discuss, just since I'm here. You know, I chose to get into politics and policy. That was my decision. The people here did not choose that. Mr. Karn did not choose that. Our students did not choose that. Our teachers didn't. I chose to go into that area, that battle. They did not. And so what happened here today at this microphone perhaps puts this district at the lowest bar ever. And honestly, you know, I talk to teachers, I talk to so many teachers all the time about problems, and I bring it forward to the board members and Mr. Connor. It's hard sometimes to even ask them what the problems are when just people are trying to display them here. This is how we act. It's worse than some of our classrooms. And honestly, I just ask everyone to keep that out of this boardroom. Keep it on focus, because they didn't choose this fight. We did, and we can fight it outside. That's fine. But keep it away from this microphone, because they didn't choose that. And when we come here to speak on their behalf, in a way, we're doing it not because it's our political agenda, but because they fear to come here or they don't want to, so we speak up for them. That's what I've been doing, and I encourage everyone else to follow that same standard. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
Sandy Armstrong, and then Kessler.
Welcome, Mrs. Armstrong.
Hi, Sandy Armstrong. First of all, I want to say how I enjoyed seeing Tom Edwards had gone reading in one of the classes, and I hope some of the others of you did that this time. I think it's really important for our students to see people who are leading their schools in the classroom and showing them what good reading is about, and to feel like they're important. And to have somebody like you all go into the classroom, I think is wonderful. So thank you for doing that. I want to address Mr. Connor, who talked about Black History Month, and you're going to be doing things in the classrooms, and I think that's wonderful. My concern is that some of the legislation has whitewashed African American history. And we have a program that's going on the side that Asala has started. It's called a Freedom School. And Freedom School started way back when black people really weren't allowed in schools, but it was around the civil rights time, early after the Civil War. And black people began to learn about themselves, learn about their history, and to have some hope and some education, which they were not allowed before. So I'm really hoping that we're not whitewashing what's going to happen in the schools. We're not going to pretend like if some mama comes up and says, oh, my child felt bad because he heard white people made black people slaves. That's just a fact. And somehow we have to figure out how to share real life in there. You know, I don't want our kids coming out thinking Rosa Parks was just some old black laundry woman who was tired. Rosa Parks was a member of the early member of the NAACP. Rosa Parks was an activist, and Rosa Parks wasn't just tired, she was tired of discrimination. And I want our children to know about that. And so I encourage, Mr. Connor, you all connecting with Asala and see what they're doing in their Freedom School on Saturdays. It's happening every Saturday, and it's pretty amazing. I am concerned about, kids not being able to read. I got in second grade, and I was a little second grader, and I had learned to read, kind of, in a school by sight reading, and I just couldn't do it. I got to second grade, and the teacher, my folks said, well, she's kind of small, maybe we'll put her back to first grade. And the teacher said, you know, I have several kids like this, let me give her a try. And I learned to read. And I went on into advanced classes and stuff. I just needed to learn a different way.
Thank you.
Kessler? Thank you. Next is Katrina Ward, followed by Louis Rosenfeld, or Field.
Welcome, Mrs. Ward.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I must have rewrote what I was going to say about 50 times. So I'm going to try this, and I know it's getting late, so I'm not going to prolong it. So I want to ask the board members just one question, and it's a simple question. And my question is, what will your legacy be as an elected official sitting in that seat? I'm not looking for an answer tonight, so I guess it's more of a rhetorical question, but it's one that I want you guys to think about. I had the pleasure of working with several of you side by side in the trenches. So I know what your educational legacy was, but now your board members, you are at the top of the tier as leaders. You're leading this district and supporting our great Superintendent Connors. So I want to just leave a couple of things as you think about that question, because it's a very serious one. It's one that impacts the lives of so many children, not just one population, not this population, not this population, not this population. It is every population, K through 12, every student, regardless of what their needs are, regardless of what their zip codes are. So what I want to know is, will your legacy include that you serve as a role model with impeccable moral character, with impeccable ethics? Because remember, you're the leaders and we're following you. I say we, I'm still thinking I'm still employed, but I'm retired now after 32 years. But you still have a lot of my colleagues following your lead, and I talk to them regularly. I also want to know, will your legacy include the fact that you help to develop and create policies, guidelines, procedures that promoted diversity, that help to promote inclusion, an inclusive learning environment for every kid? I want to make sure, as you develop those policies, that you're thinking, how is this going to impact student achievement? How is it going to impact emotional well-being? How is it going to impact making sure our kids are mentally and physically healthy? Because that's what you do as great leaders. And I trust that you all took these positions to do just that. So we're watching. I know you're not going to answer me tonight. I know you won't do that, but I do believe I'll see you.
Thank you very much.
Louis Rosenfield. Louis Rosenfield. John Hervig. And our last card is Anastasia Dykens.
Welcome, Anastasia Dykens.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anastasia Dykens. I'm a Booker High mom, and I'm also a teacher. As any educator will tell you, the first 3 years are always the hardest. Our county recognizes this with the phenomenal SCIP mentorship program. The state recognizes it with the publication of report cards displaying the percentage of inexperienced teachers in each school. This is just to ensure that they don't all get dumped into our Title I schools. I took the liberty of comparing report cards of the highest and lowest performing elementary schools in the county. The first is my kid's alma mater, Emma E. Booker. 95% of our families live in poverty. 88% are minorities. 24% have special needs. And 21% of their teachers are inexperienced. The other school I looked at was Chris Renoff's old stomping grounds, Ashtonell. Numbers were quite different. Poverty rate was a mere 29%, just 31% are minority, 13% of special needs, and only 11% of their teachers are considered inexperienced. So what does this mean? Does the fact that the highest percentage of novice teachers negatively impact their test scores? Or is performance related to the fact that our families are living in poverty and therefore lack the basic needs critical for typical academic growth? Or is it like a combo? Or is it just like a super weird coincidence? Because if it's either the first responses and those ring true, then the families and staff at Emma E. Booker have been and are continuing to be woefully underserved. One might even say that the education they receive is inequitable. Or if it's just a coincidence, then you have nothing to worry about it. But if it's not, now you know better. So you got to do better. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. That concludes public comment. I'm going to ask board members to reserve their responses, and all comments will be welcome and heard once we are finished with the agenda. Superintendent Connor, revisions to the agenda.
Madam Chair, we do have a revision. An addendum was added to item 6, which was the instructional classified personnel report.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for approval of the amended consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I move for the motion. I move for approval of the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
There is a motion and a second that the board approves the amended consent agenda consisting of items as a whole with action recorded as if it had been taken separately. Seeing no comment, please vote. And the consent agenda as amended passes unanimously. Moving to new business. Do I have a motion, agenda item number 32, please?
Madam Chair, I move that the construction services change order for Booker High School Visual Performing Arts renovation be approved as presented.
Second.
There is a motion and a second that the construction services change order for the Booker High School Visual Performing Arts VPA renovation be approved as presented. In Mrs. Ziegler, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that Mr. Connor and I had spoken, and I know Mr. Dumas and other members of staff. This is such a significant change order. I was hoping for members of the public to get a little bit more clarity. I know there's a lot of nuances to it, but I didn't want to forego it without any more clarification.
Thank you. Yes, so concerning the Booker High VPA renovation, this project has faced many challenges here in the recent year or so in terms of unforeseen requirements and adjustments that have come as a course over the course of the renovation. The scope of this change order really encompasses several critical updates, including 500 plus RFIs, requests for information. The architect in this particular complex project, as things were being uncovered and things were being taken down, there was unforeseen items that needed more information, and so in that process, that required us to go back and find out what adjustments needed to be made. For example, when you look at the fire alarm system, originally that particular item was going to remain in place intact throughout the renovation. But as it was uncovered throughout the process, that couldn't happen. So we had to increase the budget for the fire alarm system. Of course, this is also being constructed at a time when escalation costs in construction have skyrocketed. There were things like concrete and masonry constraints that were unforeseen throughout the project. And so in terms of that, and typically in a project like this, when it was first negotiated, the contingency budget was around 3%. Normally, you would have about a 7% contingency when you do a big renovation project like this. So all of those things have resulted, and we went back with our legal team, took line by line to look at what things that the contractor, the CM, brought back to us that said, listen, this is kind of gotten out of scope, and we believe that we're not necessarily on the hook for all of that. We went back and forth, and we determined that there were some things that we needed to make adjustments for, and so it ended up kind of determining that this $2.5 million is something that the district could incur as a part of the adjustments, knowing that there were a lot of unforeseen adjustments that had to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I follow up?
Please.
Thank you for that. And I wanted to just address this because it is a large one. I know members of the public have also had sent in, I think, to all of us. And I want to make sure that we had the opportunity to address it. I will say that it was fortunately brought forward to us and not just added to this agenda. And either way, I would have asked a lot of questions, and I did get a lot of answers back. And given the fact that it was negotiated, and I know that the CM, the construction manager, also absorbed some of those costs, I want to make sure the public understands that as well. And given the variety of areas I said, I will be supporting this, but I did want to highlight the reasons for it, and look forward to the opening of this incredible project that has there's a lot to offer. So thank you.
Seeing no further comment, please vote. Mr. Edwards, I apologize, you just popped up. You weren't there a second ago. Please.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that if the public were also to be aware that the county came back to us and asked for an additional $5 million on a project for the fire academy, and that solely was based upon the escalation of construction costs. Secondly, just as an individual board member, when this did come to my attention in a meeting with the superintendent and Mr. Dumas, I think it's fair, and I shared this, that the board get notification of this kind of circumstance sooner than later, so that it doesn't show up on a consent agenda and we're all taken by surprise. So I think from this process and the fact that we're building schools, I think we've all taken a good look at what can we do better as a board and how to improve communication and transparency.
Thank you. Seeing no further comment, please vote. And agenda item number 32, that the construction services change order for the Booker High School Visual Performing Arts VPA renovation has been approved unanimously. Item number 33, do I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move that the Riverview High School Aqua Science Hatchery Technician job description be approved as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second that the Riverview High School Aqua Science Hatchery Technician job description be approved. Do we have any comment? Mr. Edwards, please.
I want to thank one of our students at Riverview for talking about the Aquadome. It is an amazing experience, and if you haven't been there, go see it.
Yes, indeed, it is. Any further comment? Please vote. And agenda item number 33, that the Riverview High School Aqua Science Hatchery Technician job description has been approved unanimously. Agenda item number 34, do I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move that the new job description of speech language pathology assistant be approved as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that the new job description of speech language pathology assistant be approved as presented. And Mr. Enos, do you have a comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. If I would have Mr. Connor, Superintendent Connor, speak to this. I think that this is a pretty bold initiative moving forward to assist our children.
Thank you, Board Chair or Board Member. This initiative really arises out of a critical shortage. As you know, across the nation, we're facing challenges in filling vacancies, and speech pathologists, language pathologists are no exception. And so this, I believe, is a little bit of a forward-thinking approach. We do know of some other school districts that are going through this approach, but essentially bringing on someone as an SLPA, speech pathologist assistants, that can work directly with an SLP. They still go through the same certifications. We would pair an SLPA with an SLP in the same building, because we do have about 20 of our schools currently with 2 or more SLPs needed. And so the SLPA would work under the direction of an SLP at one school site, and does have the same certifications, but we were working towards their full certification as SLP. And so this will allow us to use our current SLPs and spread them across the district where there is a need. So it helps to fill a void that is a dire void in our school district right now. And so with that, I think this will definitely help us in terms of just chipping away at the teacher shortage, the SLP shortage, and all of the different vacancies that occur, especially as challenging time as it is in education right now. So thank you.
Seeing no further comment, please vote. And agenda item number 34, that the new job description of speech language pathology assistant is approved unanimously. Moving on to board member comments. Do we have any board members that would like to speak? Mr. Edwards, please.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and take some time here. I don't want to not be recognized a second time around. I want to start out by saying that I've seen comments, I've seen op-eds, I've seen letters to the editor, social media, referring to the boardroom as a circus and a mob and protesters. So I want to roll the tape back a little bit, like 3 years when I got here. And there was an activist, a political activist group that was forming called Moms for Liberty, and it was coming through the door. And the boardroom was packed, packed. Students were heckled. We talked about CRT, we talked about masks, we had passages read of books that could be perceived as pornographic. I mean, it was, I actually had to adjourn a meeting, something similar to what Mrs. Rose dealt with. And by being chair, by the way, it's no easy feat. So I had to literally adjourn a meeting and recall it because it was out of control. And what I saw from that, and the public has seen from that, and the public learned, is that somehow all of those comments, LGBTQ needed to be changed, we're indoctrinating, CRT, and then laws got passed. And board members took credit for those laws being passed. And so the public somehow, I think, has learned or has been taught that if they come in and speak at the podium for their concerns about public education, that board members take it to the legislature and affect laws. And so what I've seen in the last 3 meetings are parents, grandparents, and students who finally are not afraid or intimidated to come in and speak about how bad these laws have harmed them. Whether you agree with them or not, they finally feel safe enough because of the circumstances that became public, and they feel like that person can't hurt me, and that these laws can't hurt me, and now I'm going to speak up. And so whether or not it belongs in this chamber or not, that's what we're dealing with. And I think the other piece that's being missed here is that, and I was going to speak on this, that we as elected officials have the trust of the community to take care of all students. And if all students are being, if any students are being affected or harmed by laws that maybe had unintentional consequences, maybe it wasn't set out to do that, but now we're figuring out that it is, then it's our responsibility to speak truth to power. I feel that way as an elected official, and so that's why I listen intently to both sides of an issue, both sides of the issue. The next thing that I want to talk about is, in fact, the public comments, because that was a policy that I was quite proud of, frankly. After living through 3 years of that kind of bedlam, we passed a policy that said you speak on agenda items only on the front end of the school board meeting, and if you have anything else you want to speak about, that happens after right now where we're at today. And the folks, two of my fellow board members voted against that policy, and then it got campaigned, and the first thing that got changed was that policy. And so I'm all for getting back to board business. And I'm ready to take that on for a discussion to change what's going on in here. The other piece of this that is so frustrating is back in December, because I lived through 3 years of the controversy, the left and the right, I lived it. Back in December, when we asked for Mrs. Ziegler's resignation, I foresaw that this was going to be a distraction that would not go away. And frankly, I don't care about anyone's personal life, and I agree that it should not be discussed. I've had board members' husbands attack me on social media. Families should, and of board members are hands off as far as I'm concerned. And so it has no business here. But where I am recommitting is because of the distraction, that I am asking for Mrs. Ziegler to step aside. And here's why. The hypocrisy is creeping onto the board. If this were a teacher, if this were a principal, if it were the superintendent, we would be having a completely different conversation. And so now the hypocrisy has crept into the authority and the credibility of the board. When we make policy, it will always, always be second-guessed. Is this truth? Is this merit? Is it warranted? And guess what? The students and the teachers are talking about it incessantly. I'm out there, I hear it all the time. And so I'm going to ask one more time for Mrs. Ziegler to step aside. The last thing about getting rid of this distraction is that I and Mrs. Rose attended an incredible summit today, to Jen, through the Community Foundation, which in fact talked about, you're going to love this one, the whole family, and third grade reading scores, and how poverty and trauma affects how students come to school to learn. And for the time period that I've been a school board member, and I've shared this with Mr. Connor, I don't think there's a silver bullet. I don't think there's a reading program that we haven't looked at, figured out, lifted the hood, and kicked the tires. They all work for a lot of our kids, but what isn't working for our kids is the whole family approach. And what what an incredible board meeting we would have if people were coming through the door and talking about what they need from us as school board members, as families, as students, so that we could put that into policy. And that's what I'm looking for this school board meetings to become. I'm sad that I don't have a student representative sitting here and learning about how local government works. I'm sad that every time we have a student arts program, they immediately run out the door because they don't want to sit through the horror that we all have to sit through and fight through. And it's time for a change. And it is important that we, as school board members, understand our roles and responsibilities. Thank you. I'm done.
And Mrs. Marinelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few things. I would like to propose that at our next workshop or soon after that, if it can't be the next one, that we do talk about board responsibilities, board protocol, public comments, and we discuss it openly. People can watch the workshop, so we're transparent, but things do have to change. Somebody mentioned that it felt like Groundhog Day with all the comments, and I totally agree. And I think, for me, I've listened, but I think one student who spoke near the end basically summed it up, that what has been talked about tonight really had no place, because teachers don't want it, students don't want it. And I do go to schools, and I ask, and the majority of schools that I ask, it's anything that's going on at this board, anything outside of somebody's personal life is never discussed. So I think it's their own perceptions, how they view things, that's what they're going to see. So I'm going to have to disagree somewhat that it isn't all in the schools. I asked Mr. Connor, Superintendent Connor, how are things? Teachers want to teach, and that's what they're doing. So I would like to propose that goes, how the board conducts its business. I find it, as a former school counselor, I find it appalling at many of the comments that people feel entitled that they can make personal and talk about people. That's not the purpose of our board meetings. You can talk about things that you don't agree with, but the personal attacks, I find them appalling. And we have not banned any books, and that's being brought up. If books are being removed, I'm not aware of it. I will defer that to Superintendent Connor. But, and as I've been retired for many years, but I've watched these school board meetings, and I've watched, and historically, students that perform have always left because they're students and they need to get home. Historically, our student representatives have not stayed because they're students. They have to get home. If I were a parent, I would not want my child to be here till 10, to have to listen to all this. That serves no purpose. So historically, many things, when it comes to the student performance and they haven't changed. They can stay if they want to, but they have homework to do. They don't need to be here. So I think also when we talk about the focus being on students and our staff, that is always up front and the major thing that we're doing. So I encourage people to watch the workshops because that's really where the business of the board gets discussed and where things get done. Because you can see we approve the consent agenda and then we talk about new business, which has already been talked about for the most part, but we try to give clarification. So I don't feel like board members are the distraction. I feel like sometimes it's what the public brings in that tries to be the distraction. And as I said it before, and I was mocked tonight, that's great, cool. You know, that's great behavior. But I'll stay till the business of the board is done. Period. So you can put your signs up, that's fine, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Any of this does not bother me because I am here for students and staff and to get the business of the board done. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Mr. Enos, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to talk about two things. One of the things that came up tonight was in regard to social media. I would say for all parents, and I'm looking at doing a podcast on that, is for all parents is all you have to do is go out and go to your local restaurant. You'll see 2-year-olds where they're propping up an iPad in front of them. They're doing things because, unfortunately, it becomes very easy, as it was in the past, that keep kids occupied by giving them cell phones, iPads, giving them different technology devices. And when you really start looking at and you look at the algorithms, one of the things, not to promote it, but if you haven't looked at the movie The Social Dilemma, it basically interviews 7 different people who created the algorithms that why we become addicted to social media, which includes why I know what some of you had for dinner tonight, because you're going to post it on Facebook or you're going to post it on Instagram. So one of the things I would say is that, you know, when we talk about that, the harming piece on that is that, especially in young girls, is the suicide rate is about 151% increase based upon that, because as parents, we need to educate ourselves, educate kids as they use that device to understand, because that is how you're going to be able to fight that. So hopefully in the future, I spoke to Mr. Connor about doing a social media presentation. I do speak all over the country on social media and its impact on our youth. Hopefully we can get that out to parents in the future. The second thing is I've received a lot of stuff about school safety, and one of the things that's happened is a national problem, and in February and March it's at a peak, is what's called swatting. And if you don't know what swatting is where you make a fake call. And it usually comes over a device that goes through the 911 call center. And in law enforcement, and I give a lot of kudos to the school police department in that, you know, they're trained in how to handle the swatting. The administrators are trained in how to handle the swatting. But unfortunately, you have to handle it in the same manner that you would handle any other call, because when you have children's safety and staff safety, you have to do and be very, very use as much due diligence and precaution as possible to make sure that everybody's safe. So unfortunately, we have seen, and it really started last year during the Nicholas Cruz trial, it kind of peaked. There's a whole variety of reasons why people are doing it, but ultimately it's become disruptive and it's caused chaos. And a shout out to the school police department in that we've had some recent incidents. I've had some parents contact me, just so you know, they're trained. They work with our local agencies, our local law enforcement, to make sure that every single kid and staff member is safe during the incident. So as a parent, if you have any questions about that, ask the SRO, ask the principal, send an email to the board asking about the incident. We'll tell you, because at the end of the day, school safety, as I've said many, many times, is everybody's responsibility in the community. It's my responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's the guy who's working at the Publix or any other thing, is that we need people to be able to come forward because of the mental health piece so that we can do some identification. So when you go back to the recent Michigan issue that happened, there was a lot of different failures on the part of a lot of different people. And that's why the state of Florida, I can tell you from speaking that we are number one, I could tell you, as states in reference to our legislative policies and procedures that have to take because of unfortunate tragedies such as Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, which has caused it to look at, which is a brand new mental health awareness class and identification piece that all the faculty is going through. So I just wanted to call those two things out. And one is about the social media. I think that that is significantly important for all parents, because if you don't know how your kid is popular, they're popular based on their likes through Instagram, and it's based on their make yourself aware of how the algorithms work. And the second thing is a shout out to the school police department in reference to keeping kids safe on a daily basis. Unfortunately, the swatting is going to go, the peak is March. So just be realized is that I can tell you as this board member, and I know for everybody here, because of school safety is everybody's priority, that we will be diligent and we get the alerts. We make sure that we're doing everything that we can in conjunction with all agencies. So, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Ziegler, please.
Thank you. I know it's been a long evening, and I want to thank staff again for hanging in there. And I see many of you doing work, so hopefully it's multifaceted. I wanted to mention a couple things that came up in public comment I have previously. And I know we're in the process of redoing our website, but volunteering comes up a lot about people not being able to find that. And so and it might be, I looked right now, so maybe we revamp, but if there's a way for it to populate easier so that people can identify, because I know we all welcome more volunteers. At least that's the feedback we're getting. So if there's a way that we can engage them easier and quicker, I think that would be beneficial to all. I'm going to keep this very tight for many reasons, and much of the conversations that's come up at public comment I will never address in these chambers because it has absolutely nothing to do with my role as a board member. There is a lot of intentional conjecture and taking things out of context. But when it comes to public comment, I would agree with Mr. Edwards, and I actually want to commend the chair today because it is very difficult to chair these meetings. We have had, I didn't do a formal analysis, but if you go back to November of 2022, yes, there was lots of public comment, 3 years ago during COVID. But shortly thereafter, we had a new board seated. I certainly know that there was a lot of discussion, major discussions happening. But we've had, on average, 3 hours of public comment since November of 2022. Maybe a couple that have been 2 hours, maybe one or two that are 1 hour. But we have gone through this for some time, and it is very challenging because I have said for years, and have been consistent here, that I believe truly in the right to defend people's ability to petition their government. I have taken a lot of arrows. I know my colleagues up here have as well. It is not comfortable, but I also want to applaud Mrs. Rose for trying to raise the decorum because we do have important work. We are doing great stuff. I've been on this board for almost 10 years, and I will say again, the progress that is taking place in the last 3 to 6 months is unbelievable. And I think the difference is there's a willingness to say there is opportunity to get better. Not that people are bad or this or that, but I will use the graduation rate as an example. We are progressing. We did improve. So yes, is it perfect? Are we plotting and saying we stop? No, but I do want to highlight that the difference in tone, in presentation, and grit that I see from the leadership in this district is giving me a lot of optimism where we are rolling in the right direction. And it can be easy. There are a number of things that can come forward that members of the public want to speak to, and I will defend their right to. I think that years and years ago, we talked about public comment being based on agenda and then general public comment. I actually support that. I did reverse that because it became very difficult to, what you found was the application of being applied equally. So, and it became more disruptive where someone would be midway through on an agenda item and then all of a sudden they talk about something that wasn't the agenda item and then they'd be interrupted. And then, I mean, as you can probably imagine, it didn't work out so well. I welcome it. I think it's a best practice. But as we see time and time again, for whatever reason, I know that there's a current hot button issue, but there have been many prior to December. And those emotions run high. And so it makes it very challenging to navigate that. I welcome the conversation, but I will remind the public that if we are going to allow each person their 3 minutes or their 2 minutes or wherever they fall in the, on the agenda or not, we see so often that what one person feels is inappropriate or another person feels it's fact or feels it's allowable. A board member at one point walked out because he believed that the comment was so out of bounds. I will say that I will address a specific issue. In a March board meeting, I allowed public comment as chair to continue, but did make my comments because I do believe in specific to sexual orientation and what have you has no place in comments up here. Personal lives, families, all of those. But I also accept the fact that as elected officials, we do open ourselves up to incredible criticism. But as an individual, I absolutely reject that. As we go into some of the policy discussions, and I did talk to council and the superintendent, when it comes to we've passed a lot of amazing policies, but there are maybe some questions because there's a lot of hyperbole and rhetoric out there in the paper and on social media or what have you about what the actual law does or what the actual policy does. And I think that can be challenging for staff. I think that as we implement them, I don't want anyone to be fearful. I don't want anyone in our district to feel that they will have anything, that we are providing anything other than a fair, safe, and tolerant environment for every single person to learn, and that means not just to learn and work. And I believe strongly that every single person on this board feels the exact same way, but there's a lot of, as you can hear, a lot of people who believe that that's not the case. And so if there's any guidance, Mr. Connor, that we need to provide, I defer to you, but and to see what the temperature is of staff. Do they need that guidance? Because that will also translate into confidence in our students that we are there behind them no matter what. And so I'm sure I probably have more to say, but I want to thank staff again, because you guys hang in there and you do amazing jobs, and you guys wake up the next morning and will be here very early. And I welcome anytime and always will the public to speak, but I do look forward to our continued progress and more comments and discussion around that. So, Madam Chair, again, I thank you for today. I think you did a great job.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Want to have a few final comments, and I want to start out with it. I'm proud to be an educator and be an educator in this district, and regardless of organizations posting on social media to come to this meeting and disrupt, I'm going to continue to focus in on academic achievement, and it's going to continue to be my ultimate priority. I'm extraordinarily excited that we have a superintendent and an incredible staff and teachers working endlessly and are, for the first time in 7 years, using data for instruction and learning, which is going to have an impact. Also, I'm very thankful that Superintendent Connor and his cabinet are bringing back customer service and improving that. Our district is moving in a great direction. And to end on an extraordinarily important note, there's continuous dialogue about what could be perceived that students are facing challenges of bullying or the like, and I want to say it, and I want to say it as loudly as I can. If there's a student being mistreated or something is not going in the way that it should, and when I say the way that it should, every student in this district every day should have an environment that is comfortable to learn and to flourish. I don't find it even acceptable to get to the point where we're discussing is it bullying or isn't. We should never leave students feeling comfortable. So when the public or I as an educator and a board member have the accountability for that comfort level and that instruction and learning. So not only do I want our teachers to be engaged, to be happy, to be excited about their careers, our students need to be comfortable. So again, if there is any student that isn't in an environment that is providing them a comfortable way to learn and flourish, this staff will act on that immediately. I'm extraordinarily confident of that. Mr. Connor, do you have anything that you want to add before I close?
Actually, I'll just echo a lot what's been said by many of you all throughout. You guys have all hit on some very important points tonight, and I just got to say that I do want to reiterate that the tagline, every student, every day, is not just a byword. It truly is something that I, as a passionate educator for 20 plus years, want to ensure that we have an environment where every student learns at the highest potential, is giving every support they need to do that and to flourish. And so I know this team out here is committed to doing that. This board is committed to doing that. And so we will achieve that. So I'm looking forward to the future.
Seeing no further comments, the next monthly work session is scheduled for Tuesday, February 20th at 10 a.m., followed by a 3:00 p.m. board meeting. Seeing no other questions or comments, thank you all. This meeting is adjourned.